Chapter 96. There are more than 4 fellow Taoists in this demon valley. Why did fellow Taoist Pan choose us? The one who spoke was the foliaceous water. She had recovered from the depression of losing her firefox. Her beautiful eyebrows slightly furrowed as she asked the key question in Pan Shu's words. When Pan Shu heard this, the corner of his mouth twitched. He said, "Because there are only 5 of us left in the demon valley." Yi Zitao cried out in alarm. How is that possible? Don't tell me that the 4 fellow Taoists of the Yang clan and the 3 fellow Taoists of the Miraculous Gate have all met with misfortune? When he and the foliaceous water were outside the demon valley, he already knew the information of the disciples of the various sects who had entered the demon valley. Seeing Yi Zitao's doubts, Pan Shu secretly glanced at Lu Kuan. Ever since he had seen Lu Kuan's strength, he suspected that the Fu brothers had been killed by Lu Kuan. Pan Shu didn't voice his suspicions. Instead, he sighed and said, the fellow Taoists of the Yang clan had bad luck. Not long after entering the demon valley, they encountered a top-level ferocious badger. After a fierce battle, except for fellow Taoist Huang Fei, the other 3 died in battle. However, the ferocious badger was wounded by them. This was what Huang Fei told me after he escaped. But a month ago, when I returned from the central region to the outer region and was about to find a place to hide, I saw Huang Fei being killed by the ferocious badger from afar. If I hadn't escaped quickly, I wouldn't have been able to escape. Yi Zitao was a bit dazed. His eyes revealed a look of horror as he muttered, "There's actually a top-level ferocious badger here. With its speed and strength, any chi condensation cultivator who can't fly would die without a doubt if they were targeted by it." After hearing this, the foliaceous water's beautiful face turned pale. However, her careful mind noticed Pan Shu's glance at Lu Kuan. She asked, the 3 fellow Taoists of the Miraculous Gate were also killed by the ferocious badger. Pan Shu dryly laughed and coughed twice before answering. Well, they entered the depths of the demon valley 2 months ago. There are all kinds of top-level demon beasts living there, now 2 months, and they still haven't come out. Just as the foliaceous water was about to continue speaking, she was interrupted by Lu Kuan. She heard this powerful male cultivator ask, "They're all dead. There's nothing to say." Pan Shu, just say it directly. What's your purpose in finding us? If it's something that made you risk your life to find us, then it must be related to your little life. Pan Shu didn't expect Lu Kuan to understand him so well. He nodded and said, "After I witnessed Huang Fei being killed by the ferocious badger, I hid in the central region for a few days. Then, I carefully escaped to the entrance of the demon valley. In the end, I found that the ferocious badger was near the entrance. For the next month, I carefully observed the outer region. I don't know why, but the ferocious badger stayed near the entrance and didn't leave. It was as if it was waiting for the entrance to open." After listening to Pan Shu's description, Lu Kuan muttered in his heart, "This ferocious badger must have remembered his staff strike. It also knew that the cultivators would leave from the entrance. Therefore, it waited for them to come to its door." After the Yi clan's brother and sister heard this, they secretly cursed the people of the Yang clan. They actually provoked the ferocious badger and angered it, implicating them. At this moment, they also understood the reason why Pan Shu looked for them. It was to let the 5 late-stage chi refining cultivators work together to deal with this ferocious badger. After Pan Shu finished talking about the ferocious badger, he continued to say, "Fellow Taoists, if we want to safely leave the Spirit Demon Valley, we can only gather everyone's strength. If we leave one by one, then it's possible that we will all be wiped out." After the other 4 people heard this sentence, they all fell into contemplation. This was because they knew that if the 5 people here joined forces to deal with the ferocious badger, even if the ferocious badger was seriously injured in the end, there would still be casualties. No one was willing to become the sacrifice. Pan Shu saw that the expressions of the people were uncertain, but he was not anxious. He could spend his time in the Spirit Demon Valley, but the others were anxious to leave. After a long time, he saw that the few people were somewhat silent. So he said a piece of good news. Everyone can rest assured. When this ferocious badger was fighting with the Yang clan's fellow Taoists, one of its eyes was blinded. I estimate that its battle prowess has decreased. After Lu Kuan heard this, his face became happy, and he said, "Are you sure?" Pan Shu nodded affirmatively and said, "I have been observing the ferocious badger for more than a month. I found that its right eye was no longer there, and it relied on its left eye to see." Lu Kuan knew that the ferocious badger's explosive power was comparable to the essence exploding steps. If it only had one eye left, then its speed would definitely be affected, and his essence exploding steps would not be suppressed by it. After another half an hour, Lu Kuan saw that the other cultivators were silent, so he coldly snorted and said, "Now that the ferocious badger is guarding the entrance of the Demon Valley, we must join forces. If the few fellow Taoists feel that this battle is risky, I can guarantee your safety. I can guarantee that no one will be injured and safely leave the valley. However, I have two requests that I need the help of the few fellow Taoists." After Pan Shu heard this, his face lit up, and he said with unusual surprise, "Fellow Taoist method does not require our cooperation. There is no harm in saying it." The Yi clan's brother and sister also looked at Lu Kuan with doubtful eyes, wanting to know what method he had. Lu Kuan glanced at Pan Shu and said with a chuckle, "The first request is that fellow Taoist Pan needs to lend me your best quality defensive magic tool. After leaving the valley, I will return it to you." Hearing this, the Yi clan's brother and sister shook their heads. This Lu Kuan was obviously extorting Pan Shu. Sure enough, after Pan Shu heard this, he immediately covered his storage bag, and his face was full of vigilance. His expression clearly showed that he was unwilling to lend it to Lu Kuan. Pan Shu's reaction was completely within Lu Kuan's expectations. He only heard Lu Kuan say, "Pan Shu, if I conspire to take your best quality magic tool, do you think you could have escaped last time?" Before he finished speaking, Lu Kuan had already disappeared from where he was standing. With two flashes, he appeared behind Pan Shu, but he didn't do anything else. Lu Kuan looked at Pan Shu, who had brought out his giant spirit shield, and his expression greatly changed. He said contemptuously, "You should know that if I have your best quality defensive magic tool, with my fighting style, I can defend against every attack of the ferocious badger beast, and your lives will be greatly protected. In this way, during the battle, you only need to attack, and you don't need to waste energy defending." Although Pan Shu was greedy for life and afraid of death, his brain wasn't bad. Combined with Lu Kuan's magic tool fighting style and that strange movement technique, he understood the meaning of Lu Kuan's words. After a fierce mental struggle, he said, "Okay, I believe in fellow Taoist promise, but I still don't know fellow Taoist's name. Can you tell me?" Rogue cultivator Lu Kuan. For some unknown reason, Lu Kuan actually used his real name this time. Pan Shu murmured, "So it's fellow Taoist Lu. I hope fellow Taoist will keep his promise and return this giant spirit shield to me after the battle." Finished speaking, Pan Shu threw the giant spirit shield floating in front of him to Lu Kuan. After Lu Kuan received the giant spirit shield, he carefully observed it. The entire shield was earthy yellow in color. At first glance, he could tell that it was made of top-quality earth attribute materials. It was about half the size of a person's body, and it wasn't light. The front was uneven and arranged in an extremely orderly manner, which could cushion attacks. On the back, there was a handle that a normal shield would have. When Lu Kuan saw the handle, his eyes lit up. For immortal cultivators, handles used for decoration and display were rarely used, but for Lu Kuan, this was the most important part. After looking at the shield, Lu Kuan took the initiative to distance himself from the rather nervous Pan Shu and said to him, "I, Lu, am a man of my word. After the battle, I will return it to you." Then he turned to the others and said, "Now that I have this thing, Lu is confident that he can block the fierce badger's attack. However, in this way, I will be in the greatest danger. Therefore, my second request requires the several fellow Taoists present to agree." When Foliaceous Water saw Lu Kuan looking at her, She knew that Lu Kuan's words were directed at them. She asked, "I don't know what fellow Taoist Lu wants us to do." When Lu Kuan saw the Yi family's brother and sister take the initiative to speak, he said, "It's very easy. If we can kill the fierce badger, then the fierce badger's corpse will belong to me." Although the Yi family's brother and sister knew that Lu Kuan's strength was extraordinary, they still doubted whether he could block the fierce badger's attack. Now that they heard Lu Kuan actually confirm the ownership of the spoils, they couldn't help but feel that Lu Kuan was arrogant and conceited. The brother and sister looked at each other and didn't answer. After listening to Pan Shu's explanation, Shen Mingyao also knew that the fierce badger's real target was them. However, the Yi family's brother and sister didn't know this, so she opened her mouth and said, "If the two fellow Taoists feel that you can deal with the fierce badger, then you can wait until the last day of the Demon Valley's opening. Everyone can rush out together and see who the fierce badger will kill first." At this time, Pan Shu also said, "Two fellow Taoists from the Qing province. I feel that since fellow Taoist Lu dares to boast, then he must be very confident. I'm only interested in my own little life. When the time comes and we really kill the fierce badger, I don't want the spoils." Seeing that the others were biased towards Lu Kuan, the Fu family's brother and sister had no choice but to agree with Lu Kuan's words. However, the foliaceous water's expression was slightly strange. It seemed that he was somewhat disdainful of Lu Kuan's confidence. Lu Kuan saw the foliaceous water's expression of disbelief, but he didn't care and said, "In 2 days, we will work together to deal with the fierce badger. However, before we deal with it, we must first practice." In 2 days, Lu Kuan's spirit root would appear. On that day, with a top-grade defensive magic tool, he had absolute confidence that he could defend against the fierce badger that only had one eye left. Now, it was time to see if their attack power reached the standard. One had to know that the Cyan Spirit Sword and the Peerless Staff were only able to lightly injure the fierce badger. If the Yi family's magic tool set was not weak, then they would have some confidence in killing the fierce badger. Lu Kuan said to the Yi family's brother and sister, "Fellow Taoists, I wonder if you can let us experience the strongest attack of your magic tool set." Chapter 97. Outside the exit of the spiritual demon valley, there was a badger-shaped demon beast with a white back and black body hiding behind 2 rocks. Its thick limbs were bent on the ground, and its eyes seemed to be closed. However, one of its eyes was somewhat empty. It was the fierce badger beast. Apart from one of its eyes that couldn't be healed, the rest of its body had already recovered. The layer of slender hair on the surface of its body, which could both increase its defensive power and act as a weapon, had also grown back. Its whole body's demonic spiritual power was also abnormally abundant. Suddenly, its intact small black eye opened. Through the gap between 2 rocks, it stared into the distance. There, a human cultivator wearing black clothes was walking forward. After seeing the person clearly, the fierce badger beast's mouth slightly opened. It gasped for breath, and its remaining small eye was red, emitting a fierce light. In the fierce badger beast's memory, apart from the human who destroyed its eye, this person was the one who gave it the most damage. If it wasn't for this treacherous human, it wouldn't even have lost its eye. Seeing this person gradually approaching the exit of the demon valley, the fierce badger beast's limbs began to tremble. It judged the distance between it and this human, and planned to seize the right opportunity to strike. This was because it knew that this human who had caused the harm, whether it was short-range or long-range running speed, was about the same as it. If the first strike missed, it would fall into a chase. Lu Kuan was slowly walking. Although his steps were steady, his heart was extremely nervous. His divine sense was firmly locked onto the giant spirit shield in his storage pouch, and his 2 hands were holding a few talismans. With his golden eye ability, he discovered the fierce badger beast's location from far away. When a man and the beast were about 10 feet away from each other, they both made their moves. A golden light flashed under the fierce badger's feet, and a small pit was left in the place where it was originally standing. Lu Kuan threw a dozen or so high-grade fireball talismans in front of him. These were talismans that Lu Kuan had asked the Yi siblings for with great difficulty. After throwing out these talismans, Lu Kuan immediately used the essence exploding steps and turned around to escape. At the same time, a figure was blown up in midair. When Lu Kuan fought with the fierce badger beast last time, he discovered that this demon beast's short-range burst was surprisingly consistent with the essence exploding steps. Therefore, based on the distance and direction of his exploding essence steps, he judged the timing of his attack and the direction of the talisman's attack. Sure enough, as he had expected, he had successfully intercepted this vicious beast. However, he had only managed to obstruct this vicious beast's short burst of power and infuriate it, allowing Lu Kuan to bring this vicious badger to their ambush location. Lu Kuan looked at the furious, fierce badger beast behind him. Those dozen fireball talismans only messed up its fur, but didn't cause too much damage. He was somewhat unwilling in his heart. If not for the matchless rod's combined attack, he wouldn't have been able to complete it in such a short time. Otherwise, it would have been an excellent opportunity to injure the fierce badger beast. The two ran very fast. Not long after, they left the area near the exit and arrived in front of Small Bear Hill. This small hill was 4 to 5 feet high and several hundred feet long. It was like a scale mountain range. Yellow demon fog shrouded the top of the mountain range for more than 3 feet. When Lu Kuan ran to the bottom of this small hill, he bent his legs and kicked off the ground. His body was as light as a swallow as he flipped over the hill. If the fierce badgers behind him wanted to follow Lu Kuan, they would have to jump over the hill. Otherwise, if they wanted to go around this small hill, they would have to go around it for at least 100 jong. After Lu Kuan jumped over, the fierce badger beast appeared at the bottom of the hill. It looked at the hill that Lu Kuan had jumped over, and its small black eyes revealed an anthropomorphic sense of ridicule. After Lu Kuan jumped over the hill, he didn't continue to run. Instead, he patted his storage pouch. With a flash of light, he held the giant spirit shield in his hands. His arms swelled to the extreme. Lu Kuan's rough and burly posture made the several people behind him feel a strong sense of security. The reason why several people were lying in ambush here was because they had placed a formation on top of the hill. Not only was there Shun Mingyao's Blue Sea Waves formation, there was also the Yi family's Green Bamboo formation in the middle. Once this formation was activated by the caster, it would automatically trigger and control the enemy in the first moment. Although the Green Bamboo formation didn't have enough power to trap the enemy, with its delay, Shun Mingyao's Blue Sea Waves formation could be activated in time, trapping the fierce badger beast within the formation. Then, the several people's first wave of attacks could hit the fierce badger beast. As soon as Lu Kuan jumped over the hill, the foliaceous water activated the Green Bamboo formation. Then, there was no movement on top of the hill. This made the attentive Shun Mengyao somewhat puzzled. Lu Kuan lowered his head and pondered. Did this fierce badger beast discover the ambush and went around it? If I were the fierce badger beast. Not good. Lu Kuan's eyes emitted a golden light. Flames flickered under his feet. He rushed towards Shun Mengyao behind him and rudely knocked her aside. Immediately after, a golden light appeared at the place where Shun Mengyao was originally standing. The speed was so fast that no one could react. Lu Kuan was already prepared. When he knocked away Shun Mengyao, he used both hands to smash down the radiant shield. It just so happened to meet the golden light. Dang! Dang! A series of ear-piercing sounds came from the shield. Lu Kuan's entire body was hiding behind the shield. He was hit by a series of powerful attacks and was sent flying from the ground. The fierce badger beast came out of the ground. This cunning demonic beast had suffered a loss at the hands of the yellow flying formation. When Lu Kuan jumped over the hill, its incomparably powerful combat intuition had sensed a dangerous aura. Although the fierce badger beast fought crazily, it was not an idiot. While Lu Kuan and the others were waiting for an opportunity, it relied on its sharp claws and speed to drill through the ground and launch a sneak attack. On the ground, other than Lu Kuan, it only had Shun Mengyao as its target. The fierce badger beast didn't have much confidence in successfully launching a sneak attack on Lu Kuan, so it stared at Shun Mengyao, who knew that Lu Kuan's reaction would be so fast, saving Shun Mengyao in time. When the fierce badger bee saw that its sure-kill attack was destroyed by Lu Kuan, it simply launched a series of attacks at Lu Kuan. 2 months ago, Lu Kuan and Shun Mengyao took advantage of the fierce badger bee's flight to find its weak point. Lu Kuan's weak point was the same as the fierce badger beast's. When he was in the air, he was unable to dodge the attacks. The fierce badger beast was keenly aware of this point. Therefore, in addition to pouring spiritual energy into its claws, the fierce badger beast also used the brute force of its forelimbs to the extreme. Moreover, it precisely controlled the strength of its claws to prevent Lu Kuan from tilting. In this short period of time, Lu Kuan was more than 10 feet high in the air, unable to descend. It must be known that the yellow demonic fog was around 3 feet above the ground. It was also the lowest altitude for cultivators to fly. If Lu Kuan continued to receive the fierce badger beast attacks, it was very likely that he would be touched by the yellow demonic fog. As his body rose higher, Lu Kuan became more and more nervous. Finally, the fierce badger beast used up all of its strength. It then turned around and rolled, using its black fur-covered legs to kick Lu Kuan's shield. Lu Kuan took advantage of the time when the fierce badger beast changed its attack to tilt his shield. Then, his whole body was kicked away by the fierce badger beast's hind legs. He flew into the distance, and at the highest point, he was only 5 feet away from the yellow demonic fog. At the same time, the Yi family's brother and sister took advantage of the time when the fierce badger beast was attacking Lu Kuan to combine the two halberds into one, turning them into a chilling and threatening large axe. Together with Shan Mingyao's cyan spirit sword, they attacked the fierce badger beast from both sides. The reason the fierce badger beast changed its attack was because it had discovered their movements. It took advantage of the recoil from its hind legs to return to the ground even faster, dodging this powerful attack. Its 2 claws flashed with a golden light, and it actually wanted to continue to dive into the ground. It was like a cunning assassin, retreating once its attack failed. This brief exchange of blows made Lu Kuan and the others' hearts turn cold. This fierce badger beast was even more difficult to deal with than they had imagined. Not only did it see through the ambush formation, but it also unexpectedly changed its crazy fighting style when facing so many late refinement stage cultivators. Instead, it launched a sneak attack from the ground. If it wasn't for Lu Kuan's powerful physical body and quick battle reaction, they would have already lost people. Just as the fierce badger beast drilled into the ground, the soil suddenly turned into a rock. The fierce badger beast's upper body that had just drilled into the ground was fixed in place, exposing its lower body. It turned out that Pan Shu had timely used a petrification talisman. Drilling into the ground had already become Pan Shu's body's instinct. As soon as he saw the fierce badger beast's movements, he knew that it would drill into the ground. If it successfully drilled into the ground, Lu Kuan wouldn't be able to defend against every attack in time. At that time, they would become prey waiting to be slaughtered. Thus, he endured the pain and used this petrification talisman that came from the Yang clan. Seeing Pan Shu use this technique at the perfect time, the Yi clan siblings and Shin Mengyao were overjoyed. They formed hand seals and aroused all of the transcendence energy in their bodies. The large axe and the green spirit sword emitted a powerful aura, accurately hitting the fierce badger beast's exposed body. Even this petrification talisman was nearly shattered by the remaining power of this attack. This wave of ferocious attacks caused the fierce badger beast to let out a pitiful cry mixed with resentment. After Pan Shu finished using the talisman, he and the Fu clan siblings quickly moved closer to Shun Mengyao after finishing their attacks. Lu Kuan also hurried back from a distance. The transcendence energy of his 11th level Qi refining muscles was crazily poured into the giant spirit shield through his giant arm that was emitting a red light. The giant spirit shield unexpectedly grew in size, blocking everyone behind it. As soon as all of this was done, with the fierce badger beast as the center, it emitted a burst of golden light that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Each ray of light was like a golden, flying needle magic tool. Lu Kuan and the others hid behind the giant spirit shield, so they weren't injured. During the battle with the Yang clan disciples, Pan Shu had seen the fierce badger beast use this powerful area of effect technique when it was injured. It would shed its outermost layer of hair. Then, they agreed that after injuring the fierce badger beast, they would immediately move closer to Shen Mengyao. Lu Kuan would be in the front, blocking this area of effect technique for everyone. Chapter 98. Lu Kuan, with the help of his best quality defensive artifact, easily blocked the attack for everyone. He was also able to clearly see the appearance of the ferocious badger beast in front of him. All the hair on its body had disappeared, leaving behind a shiny brown skin that exuded a metallic luster. Its tail had also turned into a metallic steel whip. While everyone else was looking at the ferocious badger beast in a daze, Lu Kuan disappeared in front of them with a whoosh and then appeared in front of Pan Shu. The giant spirit shield firmly resisted the attack of the metallic, ferocious badger beast. Lu Kuan's eyes and the ferocious badger beast's small black eyes looked at each other, and the man and beast once again disappeared. The others could only see Lu Kuan and the ferocious badger beast constantly moving at high speed. For a while, they simply couldn't use their artifacts to assist in their attacks. After they had exchanged blows for more than 10 times, the ferocious badger beast's speed gradually slowed down. Shen Mengyao and the others could barely see their figures. Lu Kuan's strength had improved significantly in the past 2 months. Otherwise, his body wouldn't be able to withstand the 10 essence explosion steps. After the ferocious badger beast's 10 explosive attacks, blood began to flow out from its hind legs, causing its speed to slow down. It turned out that the joint attack of several people had already injured the ferocious badger beast's hind legs. The ferocious badger beast was furious and wanted to kill Pan Shu. As a result, after more than 10 explosive attacks, they were all blocked by Lu Kuan, causing the injury on its hind legs to worsen. Its explosive speed relied on its thick and sturdy thighs. Seeing this, Lu Kuan's heart relaxed. It must be known that 2 months ago, even if he could keep up with the ferocious badger beast's speed, he wouldn't be able to withstand 2 or 3 attacks from the ferocious badger beast. Now that he had the help of his best quality defensive artifact and his strength had increased, he could withstand more than 10 attacks. Now that the ferocious badger beast's speed had decreased, it would be much easier for him to defend. The others were all outstanding late-stage Qi refining cultivators. Of course, when they saw the ferocious badger beast's injured hind legs, their eyes lit up. When the ferocious badger beast slowed down, several people's artifacts were already looking for an opportunity. Finally, after Lu Kuan's first attack, the Yi siblings' giant axe had already split into 2 halberds, attacking the ferocious badger beast from the left and right. Shun Miao's cyan spirit sword light from behind the ferocious badger beast. Shun Miao's cyan spirit sword and sword light to the ferocious badger beast's back. Lu Kuan, from the front to the front of the ferocious badger beasts. The ferocious badger beast's small black eyes flashed. Without the slightest hesitation, it charged to the left. Its front claws emitted a golden light as it frantically attacked Yi Zitao's halberd. If it weren't for the special materials used to make this set of artifacts, it would have been shattered by the ferocious badger beast. On the other hand, Yi Zitao, who was controlling the artifacts, had his Li churning. His complexion was pale, and he felt extremely uncomfortable. The main goal of the 4 people's joint attack was to force the ferocious badger beast to jump up. This way, they could force the ferocious badger beast into the air. Then the ferocious badger beast in the air would become a live target for them. This was a coordinated move that Lu Kuan and the others had thought of to target the ferocious badger beast's weakness. However, this ferocious badger beast had a strong battle awareness. It didn't have any intention of jumping up to dodge. Instead, it frantically attacked the weakest party. However, Lu Kuan was already prepared for this kind of battle awareness from the ferocious badger beast. Seeing this scene, he quickly put away the artifacts in his hands. His hands ignited with primordial fire, and he used the explosive essence steps to closely follow the ferocious badger beast. Yi Zitao discovered that his halberd was completely suppressed by the ferocious badger beast. However, after a few breaths of time, the ferocious badger beast suddenly stopped attacking. He focused his eyes and discovered that Lu Kuan's hands were tightly grasping the ferocious badger beast's tail. His arms were like red-hot steel, exploding, rapidly expanding. Because the ferocious badger beast's entire strength was concentrated in its front limbs, it could only frantically twist its body for a moment. Lu Kuan's mouth let out a roar similar to that of a top-tier demon beast. He suddenly threw the ferocious badger beast that was about to break free from his hands towards the hill. At first, Lu Kuan wanted to throw the ferocious badger beast into the air. Although his current brute force was not inferior to the ferocious badger beast, wanting to throw the fiercely struggling ferocious badger beast into the air was still somewhat impossible. However, the spell formation on the hill was not far from here. It was still possible to throw the ferocious badger beast horizontally into the spell formation. Therefore, this ferocious badger beast fell into the green bamboo spell formation under the pleasantly surprised gazes of several cultivators. The green bamboo spell formation was directly activated. At the same time, Shen Mingyao activated the Jade Sea Wave formation on the periphery, trapping the ferocious badger beast in the middle of the spell formation. The Yi clan's brother and sister glanced at each other. The two halberds began to merge into one. This time, they did not turn into a sharp axe, but rather a large halberd with axe blades at the head and tail. They flew out of the spell formation. Under the brother and sister's control, the halberd began to rapidly rotate towards the spell formation. A faint golden radiance appeared within the halberd. Previously, they did not use this move because this move had a preparation time. Moreover, the direction of the attack was very simple. Although it had these shortcomings, this attack would unleash a powerful metal attribute attack, the cutting technique. It was extremely suitable for a ferocious badger beast with high defense. In a few breaths of time, the large halberd began to rotate faster and faster. The golden radiance on its surface became more and more dazzling. An ear-piercing sound was heard. Lu Kuan relied on his golden eyes. He was barely able to see a crescent-shaped golden radiance violently shooting towards the ferocious badger beast in the middle of the spell formation. It was much faster than an ordinary spell. An extremely miserable cry resounded. Lu Kuan looked with rapt attention. He saw a long wound appear on the ferocious badger beast's back. Blood gushed out from the wound. His heart was aghast. He knew that the ferocious badger beast's back had the highest defense. He did not expect that it would be pierced through by this golden radiance. Fellow Taoists, one more attack, and we'll be able to kill this ferocious badger beast. The Yi clan brother and sister did not respond. Lu Kuan turned around and saw that the brother and sister were sweating profusely. Their faces were pale as they sat paralyzed on the ground. They looked as if they had used up all of their magic power. He understood that this move of theirs had cost them a lot. Currently, only Shun Mingyao's green spirit sword was continuously attacking the ferocious badger beast. However, after the ferocious badger beast received such a heavy injury, it became even crazier. It ignored the blood flowing from its leg and quickly dodged the attacks of the green spirit sword. Moreover, it used both of its claws to attack the ground, intending to forcefully break through the spell formation. Seeing this, Lu Kuan's heart went cold. If he allowed the ferocious badger beast to escape, when the exit opened 3 days later, he would not be able to use his magic power. If he were to be ambushed again, he would be in danger. Therefore, he took out 2 peerless rod, one in each hand, and walked towards the spell formation. Previously, when Pan Shu saw the red rod magic tool, he felt that it was somewhat familiar. Now that he saw the black rod, he could not help but whisper, "The peerless rod is in your hands. The Fu brothers were really killed by you." Afterwards, Pan Shu revealed an expression of shock, like a mortal seeing a cultivator cast a spell. "No, impossible. How is this possible?" At the same time, the Yi clan brother and sister cried out. It turned out that while Lu Kuan was walking He had used the precise control of his muscles to combine the two magic tools into a giant black and red magic tool. Lu Kuan's strong muscles were like red-hot steel. Then, a fierce flame ignited and quickly climbed up the giant rod. Feeling the powerful magic tool, Yi Zitao's face was filled with shock. He muttered, "I didn't think that he could use a complete set of magic tools with his strength alone." To the side, Foliaceous Water's pupils were also dilated. Her vermilion lips were slightly open, and her face was filled with shock. She and Yi Zitao had always used a complete set of magic tools, so she was very familiar with the strict requirements of the user. Therefore, she was very surprised by this scene. However, besides the shock in her eyes, there was also a bit of unwillingness and stubbornness. 2 months ago, when Lu Kuan used the dual staff fusion, it was still a bit difficult. Now that his strength had improved, and coupled with the combat experience he gained from fighting with other top-ranked demon beasts, he was already able to use the dual staff fusion freely before his FA Li ran out. Under the complicated gazes of the three people, Lu Kuan held the fused flame rod with both hands and rushed into the array. When the flame rod appeared, the ferocious badger felt that its life was in danger. When it saw Lu Kuan come in, it launched an attack at Lu Kuan. It was now completely in a frenzy. However, the frenzied ferocious badger couldn't maintain its previous speed and couldn't keep up with Lu Kuan. Lu Kuan dodged the attack with 2 flashes. Then, Lu Kuan appeared beside the ferocious badger and smashed the flame rod at the wound on its back. The scorching power of the flame rod directly exploded on the wound on the ferocious badger's back. The vibrating power of the flame rod also entered the ferocious badger's body through the wound. The powerful force made the ferocious badger's limbs go soft, and it lay on the ground. After Lu Kuan launched this attack, he didn't hesitate to continue waving the flame rod and rapidly smashing it at the wound. The people outside the array saw the mountain inside the array tremble. After a short while, they only heard a bang sound. Shun Mingyao's Jade Sea Waves array was actually broken by Lu Kuan through the ferocious badger. However, after this attack, Lu Kuan's FA Li was almost exhausted. He was no longer able to maintain the fusion of the 2 rods. The flame rod split into 2 long rod magic tools and was put away by Lu Kuan into his storage bag. The other people also came forward and saw that the ferocious badger's only black eye was already dim and the middle of its body was badly mutilated. This ferocious badger was almost smashed into 2 halves by Lu Kuan. When Lu Kuan saw that the ferocious badger was dead, his mind relaxed. Then, he heard Pan Shu's impatient voice. Fellow Taoist Lu, since the ferocious badger is dead, can you return my magic tool?" When Lu Kuan heard this, he laughed and said, "Fellow Taoist Pan still doesn't believe in me, Lu. Rest assured, I'll keep my word and return it to you." After he finished speaking, he returned the giant spirit shield to Pan Shu. Then, he looked at the ferocious badger's corpse. This was his biggest harvest this time. After fighting with the ferocious badger, he knew that the ferocious badger's 4 claws, the teeth in its mouth, and the extremely strong defense of its hide were all top-notch refining materials. Its flesh and blood would be of great use to his body refining. While thinking, Lu Kuan felt a trace of palpitation. He saw the foliaceous water, standing to the side, throw a purple talisman at him. At this time, his FA Li was dried up and he was unable to operate the primordial fire shield and the primordial explosion steps. He could only look on helplessly as the talisman turned into a purple lightning bolt and struck him with incomparable speed. Shun Mingyao's extremely angry voice sounded in his ears. Chapter 99. Shun Mingyao saw a purple lightning envelop Lu Kuan, charring Lu Kuan's body black. His body twitched and fell down. The foliaceous water took the opportunity to quickly put away the ferocious badger's corpse. Her beautiful face flushed with excitement. Hands on her hips, she raised her head and said to Shun Mingyao, "You stole my fire fox, so I'll steal your ferocious badger. I, the foliaceous water, have never suffered a loss in the hands of other chi condensation stage cultivators." After Shen Mingyao heard this, she didn't say anything. She stirred up all the magic power in her body and brought out the green spirit's sword to attack them. She still had a lot of magic power left. With the Yi clan siblings' current magic power state, they definitely weren't her match. But who would have thought that at this time, a giant spirit shield that was emitting a bright yellow light blocked the sword light? It turned out to be Pan Shu. During the battle, besides releasing a talisman, he didn't consume any magical power. After bringing out the giant spirit shield, he easily blocked the attack. The Yi clan siblings took this opportunity to retreating outside the hill. After blocking Shen Mingyao, Pan Shu also used the earth escape technique to escape. Just as Shen Mingyao was hesitating whether or not to pursue, the green bamboo formation that had already lost its effect suddenly emitted a green light again, trapping her and Lu Kuan inside. At the same time, the foliaceous water's voice came from afar. The two of you can have a good time in this formation. We'll take our leave first. Shen Mingyao's face was frosty. She frantically used the green spirit sword to attack the green bamboo formation. But this formation's trapping effect wasn't below her Jade Sea Wave formation. She couldn't break it in a short time, let alone catch up to the Yi clan siblings and Pan Shu. She had no choice but to temporarily give up on breaking the array. Then, she looked at Lu Kuan with a face full of worry. If she guessed correctly, the talisman that the Yi siblings used just now was the Thunder Palm talisman. The Thunder Palm was the lowest level of thunder magic, but it was still at the level of a primary top-level spell. Apart from Relingen, who possessed mutated spiritual roots, ordinary cultivators would only be able to use the Thunder Palm spell proficiently after reaching the core formation stage. Therefore, this Thunder Palm spell was either made by a Foundation Establishment stage talisman master like Relingen or by a core formation stage cultivator. No matter which one it was extremely rare. Once the Thunder Palm spell appeared on the market, no matter how expensive it would be immediately bought. Although it was the lowest level of thunder magic, to cultivators below the Foundation Establishment stage, its attack power was incomparably huge. Even if a top-level demonic beast was hit by it, it would also be seriously injured. Lu Kuan's strength was great, but the defensive power of his flesh and blood body couldn't compare to that of a top-level demonic beast. In addition, when he was hit by the Thunder Palm, his magic power was almost exhausted, so he didn't activate any defensive spells. Therefore, Shen Mingyao was extremely worried about Lu Kuan's situation. After hesitating for a moment, she used her slender, jade-like hand to touch Lu Kuan's neck and felt Lu Kuan's heartbeat. She was afraid that Lu Kuan would be killed by this attack. At this time, Lu Kuan opened his eyes and grabbed Shen Mingyao's jade-like hand. His charred face revealed his white teeth as he opened his mouth and said, "Mingyao, what are you doing? Taking advantage of me while I'm unconscious?" Shen Mingyao saw that Lu Kuan was completely fine and was pleasantly surprised. She didn't notice that her hand was being held by Lu Kuan and asked, "Are you really okay?" "This is the Thunder Palm." When Lu Kuan heard about the Thunder Palm, he was a little confused and asked, "Is the Thunder Palm a thunder magic?" Shen Mingyao quickly explained the Thunder Palm and pulled out the hand that was being taken advantage of by Lu Kuan. She continuously circled Lu Kuan to check. Lu Kuan looked at the nervous Shen Mingyao and said with a wry smile, "I'm really okay. It's just that my body is a little numb and the outermost layer of skin is damaged. I can only maintain this state for the next few days." When Lu Kuan was struck by the purple lightning, he felt the purple ball of light in the depths of his sea of consciousness release a strange fluctuation. This fluctuation spread throughout his body and reduced the power of the Thunder Palm by more than half. Lu Kuan fell down because of the paralysis effect of the lightning. It caused his muscles and nerves to twitch, so he had no choice but to fall down. When Shen Mingyao reached out her hand, he slowly regained consciousness. Shen Mingyao revealed a puzzled expression. Her jade-like hand touched Lu Kuan's charred skin and felt the elastic muscles. She said, "Impossible. Could it be that the defensive power of your body is also comparable to that of a top-ranked demonic beast?" Lu Kuan thought for a moment and replied, "You know that my spiritual root is a mutated spiritual root, but you don't know that it's Relingen, right? It might be related to this." Shen Mengyao was even more puzzled. She said, "Although Relingen is more talented in using thunder attribute spells, I've never heard of Relingen being able to resist the power of thunder attribute spells." Lu Kuan was also a little sluggish after hearing this. He thought of the purple ball of light in his sea of consciousness. It taught him the unique ability to hide one's consciousness. It was also because of this that his spiritual root disappeared. Suddenly, Lu Kuan's eyes lit up. He murmured, "It has nothing to do with Relingen. Could it be because of my Relingen invisibility?" When Shen Mengyao heard the words Relingen invisibility, her heart moved. She said, "Maybe this is the ability of Relingen invisibility." Lu Kuan asked, "The ability of a hidden spiritual root? Could it be that other hidden spiritual roots also have unique abilities?" Chun Ming Yao explained, "I also heard from some of the Foundation establishment stage martial uncles in the sect that every hidden spiritual root has a unique ability related to innate talent. Some can increase the power of spells, some can reduce the damage of spells, some can increase the power of spells, some can reduce the damage of spells, some can increase the power of spells, some can reduce the damage of spells, and some can increase the power of spells. There was once a cultivator in the Yang clan who had a hidden wind spiritual root. His aptitude was much better than yours. It was said that his spiritual root would only disappear for a day every 10 days. This cultivator could only casually cast wind attribute spells. What was really powerful was an unpredictable escape technique. He named it the Wind Shadow Escape Technique. It was said that he comprehended it together with the ability of the hidden wind spiritual root. Not to mention a foundation establishment stage cultivator, even a core formation stage ancestor might not be able to catch him. When Lu Kuan heard Chun Mingyao's explanation, he suddenly came to a realization. It seems that the spiritual consciousness concealment spiritual ability and the lightning attribute magic resistance spiritual ability were the spiritual root concealment spiritual ability. However, he did not expect that he actually had two of them. Why was that? While Lu Kuan was pondering, Shen Mingyao began to slowly release the upper-level spell Rain Dew technique. This kind of healing and recovery spell was very difficult to learn. Even with her Kuei water body, it was very difficult to comprehend. However, some time ago, after she entered the second level of the Vajra Esoteric Art, she had some understanding of this Rain Dew technique and could barely release it. A blue mist curled around Lu Kuan's body and slowly seeped into his charred skin. The charred skin on Lu Kuan's skin gradually dissipated, revealing some reddish skin. Shen Mingyao looked at Lu Kuan's current physical condition and finally confirmed that he had lightning resistance. She said, "It seems that you have to enter the Yang clan to cultivate in the future. There are still some cultivators with mutated spiritual roots in our 2 cultivation sects in Lu province. However, only that cultivator from the Yang clan has a hidden spiritual root. If you go to the Yang clan, it's very likely that you will know what to pay attention to when breaking through to the foundation establishment stage with a hidden spiritual root." Lu Kuan nodded and then looked around. He said with some emotion, "I didn't think that the Yi clan siblings still had a trick up their sleeves. This green bamboo formation is not inferior to your blue sea waves formation in the slightest. This ability to trigger hidden power is even more amazing." Shen Mingyao curled her lips. Being tricked by the foliaceous water made her somewhat arrogant and embarrassed. Fortunately, the Yi clan siblings' transcendence energy was depleted in the end. Otherwise, they would definitely be at a disadvantage. After all, the firefox beast that the foliaceous water really wanted was still in her hands. Looking at Shan Mingyao expression, Lu Kuan patted her fragrant shoulder and comforted her. "Actually, this is my fault. I thought that Pan Shu would obediently return the giant spirit shield to him when his earth escape technique was restrained by me. I didn't think that he would actually take the risk to help the Yi clan siblings. I'm guessing that the 3 of them had some kind of transaction in the intervening 2 days." Shun Mingyao said bitterly. We're just going to let them go like this? Lu Kuan's eyes flashed with a golden light. He said, of course we can't let them go. However, in the next few days, my spiritual root will disappear. I don't have the confidence to deal with 3 people at once. However, after Pan Shu completes the transaction, he should split up with the Yi clan siblings. Shin Mingyao said, then we'll deal with the Yi clan siblings. The ferocious badger's corpse is in their hands. No matter what, we have to get it back. Lu Kuan looked at Shun Mingyao's hateful eyes and nodded in agreement. He took out spirit stones and planned to break out of the formation after recovering his transcendence energy. At the foot of a mountain near the exit, the somewhat pale, foliaceous water slowed down and said to Yi Tao, okay, big brother. That formation can't be broken in a short time. Don't worry, we'll find a place to quickly recover our transcendence energy. Yi Tao nodded and said, okay, I'll listen, a little sister. Just as Yi Tao's voice fell, not far from them, a yellow light flashed and a wretched figure appeared. It was Pan Shu. After Pan Shu came out, he carefully took out his giant spirit shield. He looked at the 2 siblings and said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, before you 2 recover your transcendence energy, shouldn't you first give me the things we agreed on? Seeing this, the foliaceous water was a little angry. However, their transcendence energy was about to be exhausted. Even if Pan Shu didn't have many means of attack, they wouldn't be able to gain an advantage if the 2 sides fought. Moreover, in the battle just now, Pan Shu took out a top-level petrification talisman, which already surprised them. If he had a few more powerful talismans, it would be troublesome. Pan Shu saw the uncertain expressions of the 2 siblings and continued, I only want the back skin of the ferocious badger. Why do the 2 of you have to take the risk for such a small thing? But after he finished speaking, 2 or 3 more talismans appeared in his hand, and his whole body completely hid behind the giant spirit shield. Seeing this, the foliaceous water helplessly said, fellow Taoist Pan is really cautious. Since fellow Taoist is not at ease, then I'll cut off the ferocious badger's skin and give it to you. Finished speaking, he took out the ferocious badger's corpse and took out his halberd to cut off the skin on the back. Fortunately, Lu Kuan had split the ferocious badger into almost 2 parts. Otherwise, it would have been difficult to cut it open. Not long after, the foliaceous water threw out the cut skin. Then, the 2 siblings raised their halberds in front of them and were quite vigilant. Chapter 100. Looking at Pan Shu's departing figure, the foliaceous water sighed and said, I didn't think that this rogue cultivator would be so cautious. Previously, I planned to trap him in the formation, but in the end, he escaped early on. Now, he's taking advantage of our lack of Fa Li to force us to hand over the beast's skin to him. Yi Tao also lamented, this Pan Shu is not only cautious and cunning, but he also cherishes his life to the extreme. He knows that the defensive strength of the beast's skin on the back of this fierce badger beast is extremely high. If he were to wear it as an inner armor, his life-saving ability would be greatly improved. However, our current priority is to recover our Fa Li as soon as possible. Who knows, there might be a fierce battle when we leave the valley. The foliaceous water curled its lips and said, You're afraid of that Lu Kuan, right? His body is really comparable to a demonic beast's. He actually wasn't turned into dust by the thunderpalm. However, even if he didn't die, he would definitely be seriously injured. The remaining Shun Mingyao is definitely not our opponent. Yi Tao thought about it and also felt relieved. He and his sister walked towards the mountain peak in front of them to find a place to recover their Fa Li. In the center of the entire Spirit Demon Valley, where the rivers converged, there was a small lake. The water in this lake seemed incomparably clear, but the strange thing was that it was impossible to see the scene in the clear water. Moreover, all the waves on the river's surface were rotating in one direction. Looking down from above, the entire lake was like a huge whirlpool. At the center of the whirlpool was the bare black rocky island. This black island was like an unfilling sponge, year after year. absorbing the converging river water. Just one day before the opening of the Demon Valley, this black island began to emit a dazzling yellow light. Moreover, this light was still spreading outwards. After the yellow fog above the Demon Valley was illuminated by this light, it slowly rose into the sky. Some of the demonic beast groups near this small lake, when this yellow light appeared, began to become restless. Especially the high-ranked demonic beasts in these groups, like birds startled by the twang of a bow, they quickly ran towards the outer region. All of the top-ranked demonic beasts in the Spirit Demon Valley also felt something, but most of them only glanced at the rising demonic fog. They didn't show any signs of fear, as if everything was normal. With the opening of the Spirit Demon Valley's exit, more and more high-ranked demonic beasts in the entire Demon Valley were startled. Gradually, they gathered together and formed a beast tide, the tide surging towards the outer region. After 2 days of recuperation, Lu Kuan's body had already recovered to its peak condition. Moreover, after recovering from the injury caused by the Thunder Palm, his physical body had also improved a little. His entire body's magic power had already reached the peak of the 11th layer. It was likely that he would soon reach the 12th layer. This place to hide to be near the exit, the best place to use. This place near the exit to the Spirit Demon Beast body, Lu said tus. Tu sts. Tus tu he. Shen Mingyao also said, how could it be so difficult to deal with without battle's awareness? After fighting with the Spirit Demon Beast so many times, you've also discovered that not only are its claws sharp, the defense of its hide is even more amazing. Therefore, we must take back the body of the Spirit Demon Beast. Lu Kuan nodded and said, it's about time for the valley to open. As long as they approach, I'll be able to detect them with my eyesight. At that time, I'll make the first move, and you wait for the opportunity to move. Okay. Not long after, about 1 li away from the exit, the Yi clan's brother and sister were carefully walking. Before coming here, the brother and sister still felt that it was better to be cautious. After all, the Spirit Demon Beast materials were very precious. If Pan Shu and Shen Mengyao joined forces, they would still be in trouble. Therefore, they used the invisibility technique on themselves. The Yi clan's brother and sister's walking speed was not slow. Soon, they approached the exit passage. Seeing that there was no one at the exit and that the yellow demon fog was slowly rising in the passage, the foliaceous water was slightly relieved. As long as they left the valley, they could use a high-grade flying magic tool. At that time, they would be safe. Just as the foliaceous water was relaxing, a black figure appeared in their field of vision in the distance. The figure's feet were flashing with flames, and it was rapidly approaching. The foliaceous water's face changed greatly when he discovered it. Who else could have this kind of speed except for Lu Kuan? The brother and sister simply did not expect that this terrifying chi refining stage cultivator would still be alive and kicking after being hit by the Thunder Palm. Moreover, he was waiting for an opportunity to ambush them here. However, although they were surprised, the brother and sister's hands did not slow down. They stood back to back and brandished their halberds. The 2 halberds stood in front of each of them and began to spin rapidly. The halberds belonged to the long-handled type of weapon. They were almost as long as a person's height. As they spun, they completely protected the space in front of them. Before dealing with the Spirit Demon Beast, the Yi clan's brother and sister had already simulated the battle with Lu Kuan. They discovered that this was the only way to resist Lu Kuan's ghostly movements. This kind of defense could block attacks from the front. As for the side, the rotating halberd's blade could be used to attack at any time. Lu Kuan saw that the brother and sister had made a perfect defense in such a short time. He was quite surprised. After approaching them, he operated the primordial fire shield on his arms to increase the power of his arms. He raised the high-grade refining hammer and hammered it at the center of the halberd in front of the foliaceous water. Clang! In the midst of a loud noise, sparks actually appeared between the refining hammer and the rapidly spinning halberd. Although the halberd was controlled by the foliaceous water's transcendence energy, it was still sent flying backwards after taking the full blow of Lu Kuan's refining hammer. The foliaceous water was so frightened that he frantically injected transcendence energy into the halberd through the telekinesis technique. Only then did he forcibly stop the halberd. Yi Zitao discovered this flaw in the defense they had thought of. He immediately stood side by side with the foliaceous water and controlled his rotating halberd to the front. The two halberds formed an arc-shaped defense line. This way, if Lu Kuan repelled the halberd, they would also have room to retreat. In the face of the arc-shaped defense, Lu Kuan had to make a turn if he wanted to go behind them. This gave them a chance to react. Sure enough, after Lu Kuan saw this change, he immediately went behind them and used the dimensional exploding steps. When Lu Kuan used the dimensional exploding steps, the foliaceous water and the others quickly moved their halberds to the back and blocked the front. Lu Kuan was also a little depressed. Even if he borrowed the power of his arms, under the situation where he couldn't use transcendence energy, there was no way he could knock away the halberds controlled by the brother and sister. The halberds had a large defensive range. If he jumped up and attacked from above, he would become a live target. The three of them were in a deadlock for a while. Then, a green sword light rapidly flew over and shot down from above the brother and sister. Feeling the power of this supreme-grade transcendence artifact, the brother and sister were shocked. However, they had been guarding against Shun Mingyao's attack. Therefore, they quickly moved the two rotating halberds diagonally upwards and used the axes of the rotating halberds to knock away the sword light. Lu Kuan couldn't help but be impressed by the Yi clan's brother and sister's battle reaction. At this moment, the two of them had exposed a gap in their defense. However, as long as he rushed from below, the rotating halberds would press down and cut him in half. Lamenting in his heart, Lu Kuan was still attacking. He didn't look for a gap. His arms ignited with primordial fire, which spread to the refining hammer and increased the power of the weapon. He hammered at the center of the halberds. Shun Mingyao, who had rushed over, used the green spirit sword to continue attacking the gap, forcing the other party to leave enough space for Lu Kuan to attack. Just as the four of them were locked in battle, and the Yi clan's brother and sister's expressions became more and more unsightly, they all felt the ground under their feet begin to shake. Lu Kuan used his extraordinary eyesight to look into the depths of the Demon Valley. His expression changed, and he quickly put away the refining hammer. Seeing Lu Kuan's actions, Shun Mingyao's beautiful eyes revealed a look of doubt. However, she also put away the green spirit sword. Soon after, she was picked up by Lu Kuan. Under the astonishing speed of the body controlling flying technique, the two of them quickly left this place and rushed towards the exit passage, leaving behind the brother and sister looking at each other in dismay. Not good, it must be a beast tide. Big brother, our speed is not as fast as theirs. We can only hide first. After all, the foliaceous water was extraordinarily intelligent. Based on the shaking under their feet and Lu Kuan's reaction, he quickly guessed the reason. Yi Zitao trusted his little sister's judgment. The two of them immediately released the Imperial Wind technique and flew to the side. They didn't run far when they saw a group of monstrous beasts rushing towards the passage. There were many kinds of monstrous beasts, and unexpectedly all of them were high-level monstrous beasts. Seeing dozens of high-ranked demon beasts running in front of them, the brother and sister were shocked. Even several Foundation establishment stage cultivators couldn't resist such ferocious power. However, thanks to these demon beasts, they were able to escape. Otherwise, the foliaceous water would have to reluctantly use the life-saving treasure bestowed by the clan's ancestor. In another place near the exit, Pan Shu was hiding behind a rock. After seeing the beast tide, his expression was also very shocked. He had been in the distance and was unusually vigilant, not approaching the exit. Sure enough, Lu Kuan was unscathed after being hit by the thunderpalm. He was hiding here to ambush them. After seeing the Yi siblings being attacked, Pan Shu used the earth escaping technique to sneak to the exit and look for an opportunity to leave the valley. Now that the beast tide had appeared and Lu Kuan and the others had left first, he could rest assured. Even if Lu Kuan was lying in ambush at the other end of the passage, with his life-saving methods and flying magic tools, he could still escape. Not to mention, he had the protection of these demon beasts. In this trip to the spiritual demon valley, I should be the one who gained the most. They probably didn't expect that in addition to the Crimson Fire Royal Jelly, the storage pouches of the 4 Yang sect disciples were all in my hands. In the end, I even got the bee skin of the fierce badger beast, which has extremely strong defensive power. If this is made into an inner armor, even if I am hit by an ordinary attack of a Foundation Establishment Stage Cultivator, I can still protect my life. It turned out that after the badger had killed Huang Fei, it hadn't cared about Huang Fei's storage bag. Thinking about how he would soon be able to safely leave the Demon Valley, Pan Shu couldn't help feeling excited. With these resources, he would be able to successfully reach Foundation Establishment. Chapter 101. Outside the spiritual Demon Valley, there were more than 10 cultivators hiding in the woods. In the past 3 months, the news that many disciples of the Demon Spirit sect and the Yang sect had entered the Demon Valley had already spread to the ears of the nearby rogue cultivators. Some rogue cultivators with evil intentions had already come here early. As for the disciples of the 2 sects, they didn't have much of a reaction to this news. This was because the sect occasionally issued missions that required the disciples to enter the Demon Valley to complete them. These missions could only be handed in by the disciples who accepted them. It was useless for others to snatch them. At this time, some of the rogue cultivators who came to the Demon Valley wanted to see if there were any benefits. The other part wanted to inquire if there were any treasures in the valley. Otherwise, why would so many disciples of the 2 sects enter? If there were any shocking treasures, they might also take the risk to enter. It could be seen that the rogue cultivators who came here were so greedy. Looking at their uneven cultivation, one would know that this kind of greed was too unrealistic. However, most of the resources were controlled by the sections. If they didn't have this kind of greed, their chances of advancing to the Foundation Establishment stage would be even slimmer. On the other side of the forest, there was a male cultivator wearing a gray robe. He looked at the many rogue cultivators in the forest and said to the skinny cultivator beside him, "I say, Lao Dong, why are we blindly joining in? Even if the disciples of the sects are seriously injured, can we pick up the scraps?" The skinny Lao Dong snorted and said, "We didn't come here to pick up the scraps of the sect disciples. Those powerful sect disciples don't need to talk about the best quality magic tools. They even have several high-grade magic tools. As for loose cultivators like us, having a high-grade magic tool is already a blessing. The difference in strength between the two is not just a little bit. Besides, even if we kill the seriously injured disciples of the sects, we won't be able to use the resources to cultivate in peace. We will be hunted down by the sects as mission targets and become trial stones for their low-level disciples." The gray-robed man was somewhat puzzled and said, "Then what are we doing here?" Old Dong looked around vigilantly and said in a low voice, "Those rogue cultivators who ambushed the people leaving the valley. After a fierce battle, there will definitely be people who are injured and escape. We will specifically target these people." The gray-robed man was shocked when he heard this. He subconsciously looked around and said in a low voice, "Lao Dong, what's the difference between us and evil cultivators?" Lao Dong patted the gray-robed man's head and said, "Your brain is too rotten. If we don't do this, wouldn't we be wandering in the Qi refining stage for the rest of our lives? If we don't fight, how will we have the chance to enter the Foundation Establishment stage?" Hearing this, the gray-robed man's face became gloomy, and he said, "Sai, we rogue cultivators are either disciples of fallen families or cultivators who learn the basic cultivation methods by chance. What we have in common is that our qualifications are not high, and we don't have the qualifications and opportunity to enter a sect. Otherwise, our chances of entering the Foundation Establishment stage would not be so slim." Lao Dong was also somewhat emotional, but he still comforted him and said, "Among us rogue cultivators, there are Foundation Establishment cultivators. There are even core formation cultivators in other parts of the Wei Kingdom. If these cultivators had the qualifications, they would have entered a cultivation sect long ago. Why would they stay as rogue cultivators? However, these seniors still rely on their own methods to collect resources and continuously advance. Suddenly, the gray-robed man seemed to have discovered something and exclaimed, "Lao Dong, what's happening up ahead? Why are so many cultivators flying on magic tools?" Of course, Lao Dong also saw this. When there was a tremor under his feet, his expression changed greatly and he shouted, "Oh no, this is a beast tide from the Demon Valley. Let's go quickly." The two rogue cultivators each took out a low-grade flying magic tool in a flurry and flew into the sky. As soon as they flew up, a rolling cloud of dust rushed over from the forest. The speed was comparable to the speed of the low-grade magic tools they were using at full strength. After this wave of smoke and dust dispersed, many more waves of smoke and dust scattered in all directions in the forest. The 10 or so rogue cultivators in the air had all done their homework before coming here, so they knew that this was the outbreak of the beast tide in the Demon Valley. They waited for these demonic beasts to disperse before flying to the exit to see if other cultivators were coming out. Looking at the cloud of dust in the distance, Lao Dong had a strange expression and said to the gray-robed man, "Why is it that the first cloud of dust I saw was not a demonic beast running, but a human running?" "Lao Jia, what did you see?" The gray-robed Lao Jia said with some doubt, "Other than demonic beasts, which cultivator can run so fast? Your eyes must be playing tricks on you." Just when the two of them were a little puzzled, a shout came from the entrance of the Demon Valley not far away. Then they saw a crescent-shaped golden blade shoot out of the Demon Valley, rushing towards the three rogue cultivators. Only one loose cultivator managed to evade the attack. As for the other two loose cultivators, their defensive magic artifacts and shields were like pieces of paper. Both the loose cultivators and their magic artifacts were cut into two halves. A mist of blood drifted down from the sky, causing the originally noisy forest to fall silent. Then they saw a man and a woman sitting on a red flying boat, shooting towards the east. Looking at the speed of the flying boat, it was at least a high-grade flying magic tool. Lao Dong looked at the ferocious power of these two cultivators and was a little sluggish. He murmured, "I told you, we are a group of weak rogue cultivators who doubt each other. We can't do anything to them." Lao Jia nodded blankly. For him, encountering the golden blade just now was a dead end. The other immortal cultivators at the entrance of the Demon Valley saw that this man and woman had turned a blind eye to the storage pouches of the two dead loose cultivators. For a moment, all kinds of magic tools and talismans intertwined and began to fight over the two storage pouches. Old Merchant and Old Dong were also shocked. They looked at each other and carefully crept into the forest. The foliaceous water stood on the flying boat and said with a murderous look, "These rogue cultivators still want to deal with us. They don't even have high-grade defensive magic tools, and they still dare to come and try their luck. I really don't know what they are thinking." Yi Zitao stood to the side and didn't say anything. When they were about to leave the valley, they began to operate the set of magic tools. The most powerful cutting technique was hidden on the magic tools. If Lu Kuan were to ambush them outside, they could catch him off guard and use this powerful cutting technique to catch Lu Kuan off guard. Who knew that Lu Kuan wouldn't notice them, but a few rogue cultivators who didn't know what was good for them sneakily lying in ambush. The foliaceous water, who was a little aggrieved, encouraged Yi Zitao to attack them. These ordinary rogue cultivators' defense was far worse than that of the ferocious badger. Two of them were hit and died immediately. Thinking of the power of killing two rogue cultivators and suppressing more than 10 rogue cultivators in the forest, the foliaceous water's mood improved a lot. He said, "Overall, this trip to the Demon Valley was pretty good. Not only did we get the black kite egg, but we also got the materials of the ferocious badger. The refiners in our clan will help us reforge our halberds and add some other materials. They will soon be upgraded to a set of top-grade magic tools. I think our strength will improve greatly." Yi Zitao said, "Yes, when the halberds are reforged, we will almost reach the Zhuji phase. At that time, We will have a set of top-grade magic tools and the black kite. We will be quite powerful among cultivators at the early stage of the Juji phase. The foliaceous water's eyes flashed, and he said, "Humph, when we meet that Lu Kuan again, we will definitely destroy him." Yi Zitao shook his head. His sister was very intelligent, but sometimes she was a little dull. With Lu Kuan's fighting strength, who could use a set of magic tools alone? What would happen after he reached the Juji phase? Yi Zitao had no confidence in defeating such a fierce enemy. Thinking of this, Yi Zitao suddenly remembered that when Lu Kuan ambushed them at the exit, he didn't use a set of top-grade magic tools. Instead, he used a refining hammer. He fell into deep thought again and let the foliaceous water control the flying boat to fly towards Qingzhou. Lu Kuan carried Shen Mengyao and ran into the depths of the Lingming Mountains in one breath. Only then did he stop. He wiped the sweat on his head and said, "Why are there so many cultivators outside? If it weren't for the group of demonic beasts behind us, would they have attacked us?" Shen Mingyao's pretty face was slightly red. She got down from Lu Kuan's body and revealed a disdainful expression. She said, "These are all loose cultivators who want to take advantage of us. However, their strength is low and they want to borrow our hands to fish in troubled waters." Lu Kuan thought for a while and said, "Is it because these loose cultivators have poor aptitudes and slow progress in their basic cultivation methods, so they can't become disciples of a cultivation sect?" When Shen Mingyao heard Lu Kuan say this, she associated it with Lu Kuan's hidden spiritual roots. She comforted him and said, "Lu Kuan, although your hidden spiritual roots aren't too good, your cultivation isn't low. You're different from them. Moreover, with Rellingan's special aptitudes, the Yang clan will definitely accept you as a disciple." Lu Kuan heard this and smiled. He waved his hand and said, "It's okay. I'm clear about my own aptitudes. Moreover, I have the entry token. Even if my aptitudes are a bit worse, the Yang clan will still accept me as a disciple." Shen Mingyao said with some realization, "So you're a disciple of a down-and-out clan. No wonder your cultivation method is so strange. It seems like it's passed down by your clan." Lu Kuan didn't refute. Thinking that the two of them were about to separate, he just stared blankly at Shen Mingyao. Shen Mingyao was a bit confused by Lu Kuan's stare. However, she thought of something and smiled charmingly. Her autumn eyes looked at Lu Kuan and revealed a different kind of enchanting charm. She said softly, "Lu Kuan, you must advance to the foundation establishment stage. Come find me at the miraculous gate." Lu Kuan's favorable impression of Shen Mingyao increased. Even if she didn't use the soul enchantment technique, she would still be captivated by her beautiful appearance. He asked blankly, "What do I need you for?" Shen Mingyao looked at Lu Kuan's expression and smiled happily. "Of course it's to be dual cultivation Dao companions." "Huh." After she finished speaking, she took out the high-grade spirit shuttle. Amidst her laughter, she turned into a streak of blue light and flew into the distance. Lu Kuan finally came back to his senses and muttered, "Dual cultivation. Now, it's impossible to not reach the foundation establishment stage. AI. No wonder I heard people say that sex is the source of human development." Chapter 102. Lu Kuan watched as Shen Mingyao disappeared from his sight. He patted the spirit beast pouch, and a small gray monkey appeared in front of him. He patted Xiao Jin's head and said, "Xiao Jin, I'm going to do everything I can to break through the foundation establishment stage. At that time, you can also learn my breakthrough method and smoothly advance to become a level 2 demonic beast." Xiao Jin glanced at Lu Kuan with a face full of disdain. He squeaked a few times. Lu Kuan heard this, and his face darkened. "Damn monkey, you can understand dual cultivation?" "No, I have to go to a high-class market to find some high-class spirit beast pouches to isolate your hearing." Looking at Xiao Jin's proud eyes, Lu Kuan was helpless. However, Xiao Jin was clever and lively at this time. He knew that Xiao Jin had recovered from the strange state in the Demon Valley, but he still asked worriedly, "Xiao Jin, now that you're out of the valley, Do you feel any discomfort in your body or mind? Xiao Jin first shook his head and then nodded. The monkey's face showed an extremely cautious expression. He shouted and gestured to Lu Kuan. Lu Kuan listened to Xiao Jin's description and his thick black eyebrows wrinkled. He muttered to himself, "There's something very important to the two of us in the Spirit Demon Valley, and it's related to our bloodline. No wonder, before I left the valley, I had a strange feeling in my heart. At that time, I thought it was my illusion. Xiao Jin's spiritual sense is stronger than mine. He also sensed it, which means that my feeling is not wrong." Recalling the most dangerous places in the entire Demon Valley and the places he had never been to, and combining them with Chun Mingyao's description and the records of Zhang Tu's clan, Lu Kuan pondered for a while and had some ideas. He said to Xiao Jin, "The most mysterious place in the Demon Valley is the Central Lake. However, this is a place that even groups of fey beasts do not dare to approach. It is too dangerous for us to explore it with our current strength. If it is really related to our bloodline, then think of a way to find the earliest records of the Demon Valley." After thinking for a while, Lu Kuan temporarily put this matter to the back of his mind. Looking at Xiao Jin, who seemed to be full of energy, he took the opportunity to encourage him. "In the end, it's still because our strength is too weak. Just now, a lot of high-ranked demon beasts came out of the Demon Valley. It's a good opportunity for you to practice. When you break through to the high-rank demon beast level, I will also break through to the 12th floor. After that, we will return to Huayuan City." Creak, creak. A month later, in the courtyard of the master of the Iron Fist School, Zhao Yuanji, there was also a young boy and girl standing to the side. In front of them was a burly black-clothed man. This man's right hand was holding the young girl's wrist. His eyes were closed as he sensed something. The young man beside him had a heroic face. His eyes were spirited, and he was extraordinarily handsome. On the surface, he had a respectful expression, but from time to time, he would wink at the little gray monkey beside the burly man. The young girl was 14 or 15 years old. She had a round face and some baby fat. Her eyes were full of spirit, and she was very cute. She was currently looking at the white light on her wrist, revealing a curious expression. This burly man was Lu Kuan. Xiao Jin's progress in the sagacious Demon Valley was the fastest. Borrowing the demonic chi outside the Demon Valley, he only spent a month to reach the completion of the 7th level of the Vajra esoteric art. From there, he stepped into the ranks of high-rank demon beasts, and his strength increased greatly. Lu Kuan himself had also progressed extremely quickly in the sagacious Demon Valley. His muscles and transcendence energy had already reached the peak of the 11th layer of chi refining. However, for some reason, he was unable to break through to the 12th layer after leaving the valley for a month. As a result, after Xiao Jin advanced, Lu Kuan hurried back to the Iron Fist School. Without alerting anyone, he directly went to the courtyard of the master. Knowing that Lu Kuan had returned, Zhao Yuanji hurriedly called over Zhao Qingtian, who was cultivating. Zhao Qingtian hesitated for a moment before bringing his sister, Sher Chao, to pay a visit to Lu Kuan. Through Zhao Qingtian had already understood that it was old Devil Murong who had harmed their Zhao family. Not only had Lu Kuan avenged them, but with his help, Zhao Qingtian had also been able to cultivate immortal arts. It could be said that he had saved their family. This was an ancient society, and the inheritance of a family was extremely important. Therefore, Zhao Yuanji was very grateful to Lu Kuan. As for Sher Chao, Lu Kuan remembered that he had met her at the Golden Silk Lake. At that time, Sher Chao was still a child of about 10 years old. When Zhao Qingtian had brought Sher Chao over, he had told Lu Kuan that Sher Chao could feel the spiritual chi on spirit stones. At this moment, Lu Kuan was checking whether Sher Chao had a spiritual root. After a while, his eyes revealed a look of disbelief. He looked at the girl and muttered, "Ice spiritual root. This Sher Chao actually has an ice spiritual root." When Zhao Qingtian heard Lu Kuan's words, he was pleasantly surprised. "Master, are you sure? Is it really an ice spiritual root? Her aptitude is second only to a single spiritual root." Lu Kuan took a deep breath, calmed himself down, and said, "It really is an ice spiritual root. However, we still have to observe for a while. Although the probability of a hidden spiritual root is very small, it is not impossible. If the ice spiritual root exists for a month, it means that Sher Chow's aptitude is enough to make the immortal cultivation sects fight over her." Zhao Qingtian said excitedly, "I didn't expect that our Zhao family would actually have such a good spiritual root after a generation. Coupled with my intelligent brain, our Zhao family will definitely prosper." Lu Kuan saw that Zhao Qingtian had once again sunk into his own fantasy and shook his head. Then Lu Kuan turned to Sher Chao and said, "Shuer, are you interested in immortal cultivation?" Sher Chao asked doubtfully, "What is immortal cultivation? What's the use of it?" Lu Kuan chuckled. A snow-white cold air appeared in his hand. It was like a ribbon that floated to the table and chair at the side. In an instant, it turned them into ice cubes. They sparkled and looked very beautiful. Lu Kuan's spiritual root appeared today. Coupled with the talent of a mutated spiritual root, he could easily cast the frost spell. The power of this low-level frost spell was average for immortal cultivators. They only needed to use a magical shield to block it. However, in terms of beauty, it was one of the most beautiful spells that Lu Kuan knew. As expected, when Sher Chao saw Lu Kuan's spell, her eyes lit up. She was pleasantly surprised and wanted to touch the beautiful ice crystal table and chair. Lu Kuan blocked in front of her. With a wave of his hand, the ice crystal table and chair turned into ice chips and scattered on the ground. Looking at the little girl's disappointed expression, Lu Kuan said, "As long as Shuer cultivates for a year, this kind of frost spell will be at your fingertips." After all, Sher Chao was a 15-year-old little girl. After hearing this, she immediately nodded vigorously and said seriously, "Uncle Lu, I want to cultivate immortal cultivation." Seeing this, Lu Kuan smiled happily. Speaking of which, he met Sher Chao and Zhao Qingtian a few days after he came to this world. It seemed that Lu Kuan and the Zhao clan were really fated. Now that he had Sher Chao, a girl with ice spiritual roots, going to the Yang clan with him, then Lu Kuan's chances of entering the Yang clan were almost guaranteed. Lu Kuan then said to Zhao Yuanji, sect leader Zhao, "For the next year, let Qingtian and Shuer live in my courtyard. Let them cultivate in peace. After a year, I will bring them to the immortal cultivation sections. From there, they will enter the immortal cultivation world and seek the path to immortality." At this moment, sect leader Zhao was abnormally excited. Immortals like old Ghost Murong were all high and mighty existences to him. Now, he heard that his children would also become immortals like that, and the kind with outstanding aptitude. The middle-aged man immediately knelt on the ground and said with tears of joy, "Elder Lu, you are the benefactor of our Zhao clan. Otherwise, even if our Zhao clan had people with cultivation aptitude like Qingtian and Shuer, they would still be buried in the secular world and wouldn't have the chance to cultivate immortal cultivation." Lu Kuan waved his hand and said, "This is also our origin. However, sect leader Zhao, if you want to thank me, why don't you do something for me?" Sect leader Zhao immediately replied excitedly, "What is it? I will definitely help Elder Lu complete it." Lu Kuan glanced in the direction of the Vajra institution and sighed, "I want you to announce to the sect that from now on, all disciples of the Iron Fist School can cultivate the Vajra tactic. Also, the school can only have the first 3 layers of the Vajra tactic. The cultivation methods of the other layers must be destroyed." What Lu Kuan was most afraid of was that when he wasn't around, other cultivators who knew the art of blood sacrifice would discover the difference in the bodies of the cultivators of the Vajra tactic. In this way, cultivating the Vajra tactic would harm them instead. He was only a chi condensation cultivator at the lowest level and couldn't protect them. After cultivating the 3rd layer of the Vajra tactic, relying on the power of the Origin Exploding Fist, one would at least be at the level of a top-notch expert. And if the 3rd layer of the body was used for blood sacrifice, the effect would only be slightly stronger than that of an ordinary person. Although Zhao Yuanji felt conflicted about Lu Kuan's request for everyone to cultivate the Vajra arts, but not the higher levels, he still nodded his head heavily. Then, Lu Kuan brought Zhao Qingtian, Sher Chao, and Xiao Jin into the Grand Elder's courtyard. After entering the main hall of the courtyard, Lu Kuan slapped his storage pouch, and several bottles of elixirs and books appeared on the table. Under the curious gazes of Zhao Qingtian and the others, Lu Kuan explained the usage and effects of these elixirs to Zhao Qingtian. He also instructed Shui Er to listen to her brother's instructions and consume the elixirs. Then, Lu Kuan handed a book to Sher Chao and said, Shui Er, you have the ice spirit root, so you are most suited to cultivate the Water Spirit Arts Foundation cultivation method. Your brother is exceptionally intelligent, so if you have any questions about the cultivation method, you can ask him. Hearing this, Shui Er obediently nodded. Zhao Qingtian, for the first month, you have to watch over your sister. If she can cultivate the foundation cultivation method every day, then we can confirm that she has the best aptitude for the ice spirit root. Zhao Qingtian nodded and asked, Master, leave all this to me. Where are you going? Lu Kuan smiled and said, During this year, I will be cultivating in seclusion and will only come out occasionally. If there is anything important, you can tell Xiao Jin and it will call me. Lu Kuan then brought them to the backyard and replaced the spirit stones for the spirit gathering array. He said, the spirit gathering array in the backyard is used to gather spirit energy. You can cultivate here. Of course, if you are bored, you can go out for a stroll. However, you're not allowed to leave the Iron Fist School. I will let Xiao Jin watch over you. Sher Chao pouted and was about to say something when she was pulled by Zhao Qingtian. At the same time, she heard Zhao Qingtian say to Lu Kuan, Master, please don't worry. We will cultivate here properly and will not go out casually. Chapter 103. After arriving at Old Devil Murong's secret chamber, Lu Kuan's eyes revealed a somewhat complicated expression. He recalled the scene of him fighting Old Devil Murong after the death of the 4 great guardian deities. From his current perspective, it was truly extremely dangerous at that time. If Old Devil Murong had a top-grade magic artifact, it was really hard to say who would have died in the end. After recalling for a while, Lu Kuan formed a seal with both hands, releasing the Earth Spike technique and Stone Prison technique, filling up the few pits in the secret chamber. Then, he destroyed the few bloody arrays that Old Devil Murong had originally set up. Lu Kuan sat cross-legged. He also recalled the disciples of the Vajra Academy who were diligently cultivating the Vajra esoteric art. His heart was incomparably complicated. Only after he reached foundation establishment with this kind of body refining technique could he truly protect them. After all, only chi condensation cultivators would be interested in the mortal bodies of these Vajra esoteric art cultivators. The prestige of foundation establishment was enough. Not long after, Lu Kuan came back to his senses. His determination to reach foundation establishment was even more firm. Then he took out the parchment that Shun Mengyao gave him and whispered, I wonder what's inside. Will it have any reference value for me to break through to foundation establishment? After he finished speaking, a top-grade magic artifact appeared in his hand. This magic artifact was one of the spoils of war from killing Zhang Tuesday. It wasn't suitable for Lu Kuan to use to attack. This way, he wouldn't be able to display his brute force at all. This top-grade magic artifact was a very good weapon for dissecting the corpses of demonic beasts. Lu Kuan used it to lightly cut his arm, and a cut appeared. He then sprinkled the blood on the parchment. Perhaps because Lu Kuan's strength had improved, words immediately appeared on the parchment. He looked at the parchment and muttered, Primordial wood shattering fist. When he saw this fist technique, Lu Kuan let out a sigh of relief. His Relingen was a mutation of the 3 elements of water, fire, and wood. Only the fire fist, wood fist, and water fist could give him direct inspiration and allow him to comprehend the relevant techniques. Next, Lu Kuan began to carefully read this primordial wood shattering fist. As he read, he gradually understood the principles of this fist technique. It turned out that this primordial wood-shattering fist was created based on the wood element spell entanglement. However, it only used wood element spiritual energy to trigger the spell's paralysis effect on magic power. Vines couldn't bind the enemy. Back in the day, Ling Yuetian relied on the paralysis effect of this primordial wood-shattering fist to interrupt the spells of a mid-stage Qi refining cultivator. Moreover, it was very effective in a sneak attack. Under this kind of continuous paralysis, the cultivator couldn't release any spells and could only be beaten to death by the strength of a mortal. After Lu Kuan finished reading, he put the parchment aside and formed a hand seal, releasing an entanglement spell in front of him. The first time he encountered this entanglement spell was when he fought with Shen Mengyao. However, this paralysis effect didn't work on his muscles' magic power, so he couldn't feel the paralysis effect. Looking at the small vine in front of him, Lu Kuan walked in. Now, in addition to his muscles' magic power, he also had the magic power of a first-stage Qi refining cultivator. When he didn't use the primordial fire shield, the paralysis effect of the small vine entered his body. After that weak magic power was paralyzed, he couldn't mobilize it at all. After feeling the paralysis effect, Lu Kuan didn't follow the method on the parchment and used the primordial wood-shattering fist. At this time, he didn't have a trace of wood element's spiritual energy and couldn't use its true power. Therefore, he combined the experience of creating the primordial wood-shattering fist and took out a wood element spirit stone in his right hand and tried to absorb wood element spiritual energy into his body. Not knowing if it was because of his spirit root, Lu Kuan quickly absorbed wood element spiritual energy from the spirit stone into the muscles of his right arm. But not long after, Lu Kuan's expression changed greatly. His right arm suddenly turned red, and the magic power in the muscles of his arm started to become unstable. Lu Kuan gritted his teeth and quickly activated the primordial fire shield on his right arm, then activated the primordial fire on his arm. At this time, the primordial fire seemed to be more vigorous, and the flames were even higher than before. After a while, the magic power in the muscles of his arm gradually stabilized, and the primordial fire on the outside also returned to its normal state. On the other hand, the trace of wood element spiritual energy that Lu Kuan had just absorbed had disappeared. Lu Kuan came to a realization. One had to know that the 5 elements reinforced and restrained each other. Wood gave birth to fire. It was very likely that the wood element spiritual energy had stimulated the primordial fire magic in his muscles, causing it to become unstable. If he absorbed too much wood element spiritual energy, Lu Kuan suspected that his arm would explode from the surging magic power. It seems that I can only try this primordial wood crushing fist after exhausting all the magic power in my body. Lu Kuan frowned and muttered to himself. Then he took out the 2 peerless rod and repeatedly practiced the dual rod combination technique. This way, not only could he quickly exhaust his magic power, but he could also increase his experience in using a set of magic tools. After about an hour, Lu Kuan put away the peerless rod and wiped the sweat off his body. The magic power in his body had been exhausted. He sat cross-legged, holding a wood element spirit stone in each hand. According to the primordial fire body tempering art, he slowly absorbed the wood element spiritual energy into his body. Because this was Lu Kuan's first attempt, it took him 2 whole days to fill his body with wood element spiritual energy. After absorbing the wood element spiritual energy, Lu Kuan stood up and tried to circulate the primordial wood-crushing fist. His entire body emitted a faint green light. Gradually, the light gathered around his fists, making his fists look like dark thorns. His aura was somewhat similar to the binding technique. Lu Kuan punched the ground with both fists, shattering it. It seemed that the power of his physical body was far inferior to the primordial fire-crushing fist. Lu Kuan slapped his head and muttered to himself, "The power of this primordial wood-crushing fist is reflected in its paralyzing power, not its attacking power." It's a pity that I'm the only half-baked cultivator here. Otherwise, I could try out the power of this paralyzing power. Actually, I'm not in a hurry to try out the power of this fist. Let's see if this fist technique can help me reach foundation establishment first. After thinking it through, Lu Kuan continued to sit cross-legged and made another cut beside the wound on his arm, reactivating the goatskin parchment that had returned to normal. This time, Lu Kuan was a little absent-minded when thinking about the cultivation method, so he didn't control his strength well. Under the sharp blade of the top-grade magic tool, the wound on his arm was very deep. Lu Kuan didn't mind. With his body's recovery ability, the blood would quickly stop flowing. After a short while, he picked up the goat skin that had reappeared and continued to refer to it. At the same time, he recalled the five-colored halo ability of the giant arm and the formation of the primordial fire shield. He repeatedly deduced in his mind and studied the wood element's spiritual energy body tempering technique. After 3 days, Lu Kuan's spirit roots appeared. He began to experiment with what he had gained in the past 3 days. He began to mobilize the wood attribute spirit energy in his entire body. Just like the elemental fire body tempering mantra, this type of muscle magic energy caused his body to feel excruciating pain every time it was converted. On one hand, Lu Kuan had undergone many years of muscle training and was used to various kinds of muscle pain. On the other hand, his willpower was extremely strong, so each time he cultivated, it wasn't particularly torturous. After several hours, Lu Kuan successfully converted all the wood element's spiritual energy in his body into magic energy and stored it in his muscles. During this conversion process, Lu Kuan clearly felt that his body had undergone some changes. However, when he finished converting his magic energy, his cultivation was still at the peak of the 11th layer of chi refining. There were no obvious changes, indicating that the changes in his body didn't bring about an increase in his cultivation. My magic energy didn't break through, but my body definitely strengthened in some way. Then I'll use what element spiritual energy to temper my body. Where's the scar on my arm? Lu Kuan suddenly realized that the wound that had bled a few days ago had completely disappeared, as if it had never existed. He clearly remembered that before the conversion of magic power, the scar here was still there, but in just a few hours, the scar had disappeared without a trace. Could it be that this would element spiritual energy tempering enhances my recovery ability? And the changes in my body just now were due to my improved recovery ability? Lu Kuan muttered to himself in disbelief. In the following month, Lu Kuan continuously tempered his body with what element spiritual energy and gradually gained some insights. For the sake of convenience, he named this wood element cultivation technique the Primordial Wood Body Tempering Mantra and compared it with the Primordial Fire Body Tempering Mantra. First of all, the Primordial Wood Body Tempering Mantra's attacks didn't have any other means to increase the power of the attack except for the ability to paralyze. Because no one had tested it before, Lu Kuan didn't know how strong this paralyzing ability was. In terms of attack power, it was far inferior to the Primordial Fire. Next was speed. After converting to wood element spiritual energy, Lu Kuan couldn't use the Primordial Fire explosion step or the body defense flying technique. This wood element spiritual energy couldn't even use the Primordial Fire, let alone the explosive power of the Primordial Fire. However, the Primordial Wood Body Tempering Mantra also had an advantage, and that was its Primordial Wood Shield. This Primordial Wood Shield was somewhat similar to the Primordial Fire Shield. Both would increase the defensive power of the body's surface, but other functions were different. When Lu Kuan used the Primordial Fire Shield on his arms, the power of his arms would increase greatly. If he used the Primordial Wood Shield on his arms, the power wouldn't increase, but the recovery ability of his arms would greatly increase. Lu Kuan didn't experiment. He used a supreme-grade magic artifact knife to cut a small wound on his arm. When he operated the Primordial Wood Shield, the wound healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. As for body tempering, Lu Kuan's body had been tempered by what element spiritual energy for the past month. Its strength had increased, and he was only one step away from the 12th stage of chi refinement. This meant that the primordial wood body tempering mantra also had the effect of tempering the body. In the end, Lu Kuan concluded that the primordial wood body tempering mantra could continuously strengthen the body. Its special feature was that it could increase the recovery ability of the body. It wouldn't be bad for him to cultivate it more. However, this cultivation technique was the same as the primordial fire body tempering mantra. Spirit energy couldn't temper the muscles and bones, let alone the marrow and organs. Chapter 104. Lu Kuan was somewhat disappointed when he understood the effects of the primordial tree body refining art. He muttered, "Should I try the effects of the foundation establishment pill? This is a pill that all qi condensation cultivators yearn for even in their dreams." After he finished speaking, Lu Kuan took out a pill bottle from his storage pouch and poured out a blue pill. It was the foundation establishment pill. He had already heard Shun Mengyao describe the effects of the foundation establishment pill in detail in the Spirit Demon Valley. The foundation establishment pill had three main effects for qi condensation cultivators. The first effect was to improve one's physique and physical body so that the cultivator's body could withstand more magic power, thus laying the foundation for the foundation establishment stage. However, there was a prerequisite for improving one's physique, which was that the cultivator had to reach the late stage of qi condensation. Only then could the cultivator's physical body withstand the medicinal power of the foundation establishment pill. Otherwise, the turbulent medicinal power would shatter the cultivator's physical body. Moreover, the foundation establishment pill greatly improved the physique of cultivators before the age of 50. For cultivators after 50, it was somewhat lacking. This was because before the foundation establishment stage, the cultivator's physique was not much different from that of mortals. After 50, the body would also age. If the body were to take the foundation establishment pill when the body was old, most of the medicinal power to improve one's physique would only be used to slow down the aging process. The second effect was to stimulate magic power and turn a small portion of the gaseous magic power into a liquid state. All foundation establishment cultivators had liquid magic power. The quality and purity of their magic power were much higher than those of the qi condensation stage. It was the existence of this liquid magic power that improved the lifespan of cultivators and doubled their lifespan. Cultivators with good aptitudes only needed the stimulation of one foundation establishment pill to successfully turn the magic power in their body into a liquid state and enter the foundation establishment stage. Cultivators with poor aptitudes needed several foundation establishment pills to successfully turn their magic power into a liquid state. Therefore, it was almost impossible for loose cultivators like Old Ghost Morong, Pan Shu, and the majority of loose cultivators to use one foundation establishment pill to turn their magic power into a liquid state. If they wanted to enter the foundation establishment stage, they either had to have several foundation establishment pills or think of other methods. Therefore, Old Devil Morong thought of the blood sacrifice method to build the foundation, and Pan Shu tried his best to get the red fire royal jelly. As for the other rogue cultivators, they could only keep accumulating the resources in their hands and try their best to buy as many foundation establishment pills as possible from the disciples of the immortal cultivation sects. Only then would they have the hope of building their foundation. The last function of the foundation establishment pill was to increase one's magic power. Those who could withstand the medicinal power of the foundation establishment pill were all late-stage qi refining cultivators. No matter how poor these people's aptitudes were, after taking the foundation establishment pill, their cultivation would increase by 1 or 2 levels. If one's magic power was already at the great circle of the 13th layer, then the foundation establishment pill's medicinal effect will be mainly used to improve one's constitution and stimulate one's magic power. This was the reason why the majority of cultivators would only take foundation establishment pills when they reached the great circle of the aura refining stage. Lu Kuan's current situation was different from that of ordinary cultivators. Although his foundation cultivation technique was only at the first layer, his body was stronger than that of ordinary foundation establishment cultivators due to his main body cultivation technique. Therefore, the medicinal effect of the foundation establishment pill definitely wouldn't harm his body. Taking the foundation establishment pill wouldn't be a problem. However, in terms of stimulating his magic power, Lu Kuan was a bit worried. First of all, his magic power was in the muscles of his body. Whether or not the foundation establishment pill could stimulate, it was another matter. Even if it could be stimulated, it would take far longer than a day to transform the gaseous magic power into liquid magic power. Moreover, his spirit root could only exist for a day at most. It was very likely that after transforming a small portion of his magic power, his spirit root would disappear and he wouldn't be able to continue. The transformed liquid magic power might return to its gaseous state. The primordial tree body tempering mantra that he had previously comprehended wouldn't be of any help to his foundation establishment speed. After some consideration, Lu Kuan still decided to try the foundation establishment pill's effect. If it had a certain effect, then after he entered the Yang clan, he would just have to find a way to obtain more foundation establishment pills. After Lu Kuan decided to take the foundation establishment pill, he began to set up a formation on the ground. After his trip to the Smart Demon Valley, Lu Kuan had consulted Shinmeng Yao on a lot of basic knowledge. He could already set up those simple formations that old Devil Morong had taught him. Right now, he was setting up a spirit gathering formation. Lu Kuan wasn't sure if the effects of the foundation establishment pill had anything to do with the surrounding spirit chi. Just in case, he still set up a formation. During this trip to the Demon Valley, he had killed the Fu brothers and Zhang Tuesday. In addition to a large amount of spirit stones, there were also many basic materials in their storage pouches. It was enough for him to set up a few more spirit gathering formations. Lu Kuan used a silvery sand-like material to draw a pattern on the ground. This silvery sand-like material was called jade sand. It was a basic material used to set up formations in the immortal cultivation world. It could conduct the spirit chi within spirit stones. Then, he took out other materials of different colors and placed them around the pattern in a regular pattern. Lu Kuan drew for a long time before he finally carved out the formation. Then, he injected his magic power into the formation. The circular pattern formed by the jade sand began to flash with a white light. After hesitating for a moment, he took out 5 mid-grade spirit stones from his storage pouch and placed them on the spirit gathering formation. This way, the spirit gathering formation spirit chi would be much denser. However, a single spirit gathering formation would cost several hundred low-grade spirit stones. Ordinary cultivators wouldn't be willing to spend so much. Next, Lu Kuan had to disperse all the wood attribute magic power in his body and cultivate his fire attribute magic power again. This was because his basic cultivation technique was the fire spirit technique. The wood attribute magic power in his muscles was very likely to conflict with the magic power of his basic cultivation technique during the process of taking the foundation establishment pill. After Lu Kuan cultivated his fire attribute magic power again, he calmly spent 5 days. When the spirit root appeared, he sat cross-legged in the middle of the luxurious spirit gathering formation. He poured out a foundation establishment pill from the pill bottle and swallowed it into his stomach. As soon as the foundation establishment pill entered his stomach, a powerful medicinal power spread out from it and rushed to every part of his body. Lu Kuan's internal organs, bones, blood vessels, meridians, and muscles were all tough and powerful. This medicinal power didn't cause any damage to him. The first thing Lu Kuan felt was that after this turbulent medicinal power entered his body, it turned into a strange energy constantly shuttling back and forth in his body. Lu Kuan took the opportunity to operate the elemental fire body refining art. However, no matter what, he had no way to convert this energy into magic power. This energy wandered around Lu Kuan's powerful body for a while, as if it had no way to do anything. It all entered Lu Kuan's Danton. There was only a small mass of gaseous magic power here. When the magic power of the first level of qi refining came into contact with this energy, it was like water in a pot of oil, surging and churning violently. He didn't know if it was because the magic power was too little, but after churning for a while, this mass of gaseous magic power gradually disappeared, as if it had evaporated. When this mass of energy discovered that the magic power was gone, it unwillingly turned back into pure medicinal power, occupying the Dantian. Lu Kuan found that this medicinal power didn't have any reaction. He first operated the elemental fire body refining art, trying to absorb this medicinal power into his muscle fibers. However, there was still no way to do so. This medicinal power was different from spirit energy. Lu Kuan's body refining art simply couldn't absorb it. After trying to no avail, Lu Kuan could only operate the fire spirit art. This mass of medicinal power was quickly converted into magic power, allowing his foundation cultivation to progress rapidly. This wave of medicinal power was only a small part of the foundation establishment pill. Later on, the medicinal power that gushed out from the foundation establishment pill was the same as the first wave. It didn't improve his body, and then it stimulated the magic power in Lu Kuan's Dantian. This magic power was stimulated and disappeared without a trace. In the end, the medicinal power continued to be converted into magic power by Lu Kuan's fire spirit art. During this day, the magic power in Lu Kuan's Dantian was first stimulated to disappear, then the medicinal power was converted into magic power. This cycle repeated until Lu Kuan's spirit root disappeared. After the spirit root disappeared, the new medicinal power that appeared after the stimulation of the magic power in the Dantian disappeared. It wasn't converted into magic power, but instead began to gather in the Dantian. For a full 5 days, the medicinal power gathered here grew larger and larger, and had no choice but to spread to the body. During these 5 days, Lu Kuan could only continuously operate the elemental fire body tempering art. Through the spirit gathering array, he absorbed a large amount of fire attribute spirit energy to temper his body for cultivation. The medicinal power seemed to be incompatible with Lu Kuan's muscles and only lingered in his body, not being absorbed. Fortunately, Lu Kuan's body was strong, and the enormous medicinal power was unable to harm him in the slightest. In the end, the medicinal power actually began to disperse outside of his body. This made Lu Kuan want to cry, but no tears came out. All the cultivators who consumed the foundation establishment pill couldn't wait to use every trace of the medicinal power inside. He, on the other hand, was lucky that the medicinal power actually escaped from his body. 5 days later, Lu Kuan finally waited for the spirit root to appear. At this time, there was still a lot of medicinal power in his body. He hurriedly operated the fire spirit chant to absorb it. The medicinal power of the foundation establishment pill was very strong. Lu Kuan absorbed it like this for more than 2 months before he completely absorbed it. Shen Mingyao previously estimated that Lu Kuan would spend half a year to absorb the medicinal power of the foundation establishment pill, but she didn't expect that the medicinal power of the foundation establishment pill would actually disperse outside of his body, causing more than half of the medicinal power to be lost. After Lu Kuan finished absorbing the foundation establishment pill, he impatiently sensed the condition of his body. He found that his muscles' magic power had broken through the bottleneck of the 11th layer. However, with the previous state of his muscles' magic power, even if he didn't use the foundation establishment pill, he could still break through in a few months. This made Lu Kuan feel very disappointed because it meant that the foundation establishment pill had no effect on his body refining. It wasn't that he didn't gain anything. Under the effect of the foundation establishment pill, his foundation cultivation technique reached the 4th layer of the qi refining realm. This allowed his divine sense to increase by a small amount, and he barely reached the late stage of the qi refining realm. Lu Kuan could only comfort himself that this foundation establishment pill was not wasted. If other cultivators were to know about Lu Kuan's situation, they would definitely scold him for being a wastrel and categorize him as a waste of resources like a waste of wood. Lu Kuan's expression was complicated. He sighed and said to himself, Mingyao definitely wouldn't have thought about my situation. Since the foundation establishment pill is not feasible, I still have to think of a way to improve my body refining technique. My body refining technique used the foundation cultivation technique as a reference. If I want to improve it, wouldn't I have to look up some foundation establishment stage cultivation techniques? Thinking of this, Lu Kuan felt a headache. Foundation establishment stage cultivation techniques were not as common as foundation cultivation techniques. Only foundation establishment stage cultivators had them. With Lu Kuan's current strength, it was simply impossible for him to deal with a foundation establishment stage cultivator. Chapter 105. There were a total of 4 mountain ranges in Wei Kingdom's Lu province. There were the Lingming Mountain Range and the Luyang Mountain Range in the west, the Yunling Mountain Range in the north, and the Yang Mountain Range in the south. Among them, the Lingming Mountain Range and the Luyang Mountain Range had an average concentration of spirit qi. Moreover, there were many demonic beasts in these 2 mountain ranges. Some places were even filled with a lot of demonic aura. One of them was the strange Lingming Demonic Valley. Faced with such a yellow demonic fog that could even severely injure a nascent soul cultivator, no immortal cultivation sect dared to establish a sect here. As for the Yunling Mountain Range in the north of Lu Province, it was full of spirit qi. It was said that there was a demon abyss in the depths of the mountain range, which had a lot of pure devil qi. This devil qi was different from spirit qi. It was said that it was left behind from another world, which allowed the existence of fiendish cultivators in this immortal cultivation world. This devil qi was quite strange. As long as there was devil qi, the spirit qi in the vicinity would be abnormally abundant. Such a mountain range was a place that fiendish cultivators dreamed of cultivating. Therefore, tens of thousands of years ago, the founder of the Miraculous Gate chose the Yunling Mountain Range as the location of the Miraculous Gate. The abundant spirit qi here could provide for ordinary cultivators to cultivate. The pure devil qi in the depths of the demon abyss could allow fiendish cultivators to break through bottlenecks more easily and improve their devil qi. After tens of thousands of years of development, the Miraculous Gate's comprehensive strength was ranked at the top of Wei Kingdom. The last mountain range was the Yayang Mountain Range in the southernmost part of Lu Province. The Yayang Mountain Range's spirit qi was slightly inferior to the Yunling Mountain Range. However, there were many fine iron and brass veins in the Yayang Mountain Range. The founder of the Yayang clan had taken a fancy to this mountain range and founded the Yayang clan tens of thousands of years before the Miraculous Gate was established. Relying on these veins, the Yayang clan's refining techniques could be said to be perfect after so many years of tempering. They were unique and very famous in the entire Wei Kingdom. The core formation stage ancestors of the Yang clan were even more famous for their tool refinement techniques. Core formation stage seniors would often come to the Yang clan to offer large amounts of spirit stones in exchange for top-notch treasures refined by these ancestors. All the disciples of the Yang clan were proud of their clan's artifact refining techniques. Most of the outstanding disciples spent their energy on artifact refining, which resulted in the average strength of the Yang clan's disciples. The number of core formation stage cultivators was also very few, and they were not ranked in the entire Wei Kingdom. However, because of their special refining methods, most of the immortal cultivation sects were very friendly to the Yang clan, and very few of them were hostile to them, including the Miraculous Gate. The Miraculous Gate was a sect that had inherited several powerful demonic techniques. The sect was built beside the demonic abyss. The disciples of the Miraculous Gate were the complete opposite of the Yang clan. They spent all their energy on cultivation, and the strength of the sect was astonishing. In the depths of the Yunling mountain range, in the back mountain of the Miraculous Gate, there was a bottomless abyss. On both sides of the abyss were black rock cliffs. If one were to observe carefully, one would discover that these black rocks were somewhat shrouded in black fog. At this moment, beside the bottomless abyss, there were two women standing gracefully. One of them was dressed in a long black dress. Her face was covered with a black silk scarf, revealing a pair of cold eyes. The skin exposed by the scarf was abnormally pale, giving people the impression that she was a human-shaped ice cube, emitting an intense cold aura. The biting cold wind at the edge of the abyss blew this woman's long dress, outlining her exquisite figure. However, from the crow's feet at the corner of her eyes, one could tell that this woman was quite old. The other woman had long hair fluttering in the wind, beautiful white skin, watery eyes, and an enchanting figure. She was Shan Mingyao, who had returned to the miraculous gate. She was looking at the dense fog in the bottomless abyss, silent and full of hesitation. After an unknown amount of time, the older woman opened her mouth to speak. Her voice was incomparably cold, without the slightest trace of emotion. Mingyao, have you thought it through? With your Kuei water physique, cultivating this art of unruffled beauty can be said to be like a fish in water, achieving twice the result with half the effort. What are you still hesitating for? Moreover, I have not taught this technique to any disciple. If it were not for the fact that you and I were very similar in the past, I would not have taught it to you. You are still hesitating right now. Could it be that you are afraid that the enemy is too strong and do not dare to avenge your parents? Hearing this, Shan Mingyao's eyes flashed with an uncontrollable hatred. She said, "Master, don't worry. Mingyao of course wants revenge. Moreover, Mingyao must personally destroy that person's soul in order to sacrifice my parents' souls in heaven." It turned out that this older woman was the core formation ancestor who issued the mission to kill Zhang Tuesday. After Shan Mingyao completed the mission, she successfully became her disciple. Because many disciples in the miraculous gate were vile people who only cared about profit and did not respect their masters, this famous fairy Ling used a secret technique on Shan Mingyao. Under this technique, Shan Mingyao would answer whatever Fairy Zhang asked. In the end, Fairy Ling asked about Shan Mingyao's biggest secret, which was the revenge of her parents. She also knew this enemy and knew that he was very powerful. After hearing Shan Mingyao's arrogant words, Fairy Ling coldly snorted and said, "With your current cultivation speed, if you don't learn this beauty art of forgetting emotion, you will never catch up to that person's cultivation. Even with Master's current strength, I may not be able to defeat him." Shan Mingyao revealed a bit of worry and said, "But Master, if I learn this beauty art of forgetting emotion, won't my temperament change and become another me, forgetting the past?" Fairy Ling thought that Shan Mingyao was afraid of forgetting the revenge of her parents. She paused for a moment and slowly explained, "You also know that this beauty art of forgetting emotion is a top-level technique that can be cultivated from the foundation establishment stage to the late core formation stage. It will not make you forget anything at all. It will only make you a bit indifferent to the feelings between men and women. I have been practicing this technique since I was in the foundation establishment stage until I reached the early core formation stage. I remember all kinds of things from childhood to adulthood. A lot of hatred is still buried in my heart and has not been reduced in the slightest. With your aptitude, it is not a problem for you to reach the foundation establishment stage. However, it is not so easy to break through the bottleneck of the core formation stage. Therefore, while you're still in the foundation establishment stage, you should take the foundation establishment pill at the edge of the devil abyss. The moment you reach the foundation establishment stage, you will be able to absorb a trace of devil chi here and quickly get started with the beauty art of forgetting emotion. Otherwise, if you don't have other opportunities, you won't be able to catch up with your enemy's cultivation. Our cultivation is improving, but so is his. If he breaks through to the nascent soul stage, you won't be able to take revenge." Shan Mingyao frowned tightly. She was still waiting for Lu Kuan to come to the miraculous gate to find her. However, if she learned the beauty art of forgetting emotion, it was very likely that she would forget her feelings for Lu Kuan. However, thinking of the tragic death of her parents, Shen Mingyao clenched her silver teeth and the desire for revenge took over. With a determined expression, she nodded to Fairy Ling and said, "Master, I will learn the beauty art of forgetting emotion." After that, she took out a foundation establishment pill that she had exchanged with her sex contribution points and swallowed it. Then, she sat cross-legged and began to break through to the foundation establishment stage. Fairy Ling, who had a cold expression on her face, saw this scene and her eyes revealed a bit of reminiscence. Shen Mingyao's expression reminded her of something. After Lu Kuan finished taking the foundation establishment pill, he came out of the secret room. When he came out, he saw Xiao Jin holding a gray storage bag in its hand and running towards him in high spirits, squeaking. Behind her were Zhao, Qin Tian, and Sher Chao, who were somewhat frightened. After Lu Kuan understood Xiao Jin's description, he looked at the two people and the monkey in front of him rather speechlessly. It turned out that during the time he was in closed-door cultivation, Zhao Qin Tian had used some unknown means to serve Xiao Jin very well. When they were not cultivating, Xiao Jin actually took the initiative to take them out for a stroll on the street. This stroll was fine, but a few days ago, they happened to meet a cultivator. This cultivator was a loose cultivator in the middle stage of the aura refining stage. On the street, he scanned with his divine sense and accidentally discovered that Zhao Qin Tian and his sister were in the first and second stage of the aura refining stage. This level of cultivation was nothing in the loose cultivator's eyes, but this loose cultivator saw a storage bag on the gray monkey, which didn't have any demonic spiritual power. This loose cultivator's heart flashed with greed, and he secretly followed them. However, he was more cautious and didn't directly make a move. Instead, he followed the two people and the monkey for more than half a day. After careful observation, he found that there were no other cultivators guarding them. He didn't know if it was because the storage bag on Xiao Jin's waist was too tempting, but this cultivator in the middle stage of the aura refining stage couldn't wait for too long. He directly made a move at a place with fewer people. The final result was needless to say. With Xiao Jin's cultivation as a high-tiered demonic beast, she easily killed him. If Xiao Jin hadn't shown off to Lu Kuan about this matter, he probably wouldn't have known. Lu Kuan didn't feel happy that Xiao Jin destroyed the other party. Instead, he felt deep fear. This time, they were lucky to have met a loose cultivator in the middle stage of the aura refining stage. If they had met a powerful cultivator in the late stage of the aura refining stage, the consequences would have been unimaginable. He didn't have to worry about Xiao Jin, but he did have to worry about Zhao, Qin Tian, and Sher Chao. As long as they were hit by a fireball technique, their weak transcendence energy wouldn't be able to resist at all. Thinking of this, Lu Kuan said to Zhao Qin Tian, whose face was a little pale, "Qin Tian, you've seen the greed of cultivators, right? They can make a move on you at any time. You used to be immortal, so it was fine. Shui are you too. If you don't want to be locked up in this small courtyard by me, then listen to me and don't leave the Iron Fist School. After more than half a year, I will take you across half of Lu Province. There will be plenty of opportunities for you to play." Zhao Qin Tian and Sher Chao were also a little frightened and nodded their heads in agreement. Lu Kuan turned to Xiao Jin and said, "Xiao Jin, you're not allowed to take them out. Otherwise, I'll take back my storage bag. You have to know that it's full of spirit stones and demonic beast flesh." The little monkey immediately covered the storage bag with both hands and compared its size to Lu Kuan's. It had no choice but to agree dejectedly. Chapter 106. A year passed in the blink of an eye. Zhao Qin Tian had matured a little and gradually revealed a heroic aura. At this moment, he was facing the empty space in front of him and forming hand seals. Immediately after, a small vine appeared in the empty space. It trembled and emitted a weak wave of magic power. However, this vine only lasted for a few breaths of time before it disappeared. Zhao Qin Tian said to the cute girl next to him in a somewhat dejected manner, "My 4th level cultivation is still too weak. This kind of entanglement technique can only last for a short while. The girl next to him was Sher Chow. In this year, after Sher, Chow cultivated the water spirit technique. Her appearance had changed a little. Her skin was more tender and fair, her body had grown a lot taller, and her baby fat face had become thinner. Her eyes were unusually lively, and she was a living beauty. When Sher Chow saw Zhao Qingtian's shoddy entanglement technique, her eyes revealed a look of disdain. She formed hand seals, and a slightly thick vine pulled out for the ground and suddenly appeared under Zhao Qingtian's feet. Zhao Qingtian already knew that his sister would do this. He quickly dodged to the side and dodged this much more powerful entanglement technique. Brother, you're too stupid. I'm also at the 4th level of cultivation. Master only taught me once. Hearing Sher Chow's words, Zhao Qingtian was incomparably depressed. Although he heard from his master that the aptitude of cultivating spells with mutated spiritual roots was far superior to that of ordinary people, seeing that he couldn't compare to his sister, who had only learned it once after practicing for a few days, made him feel uncomfortable in his heart. Mutated spiritual roots are really abnormal. I'm going to cultivate the Vajra esoteric art. I don't believe that you can catch up to my cultivation of the Vajra esoteric art. Zhao Qingtian's face was full of unwillingness. Since young, he had been extraordinarily talented. Now that his sister had caught up to him, he suffered a blow and planned to find other ways to regain his confidence. About 1,000 feet above the Grand Elder's courtyard, there was a small green boat-shaped magic artifact floating in the air. On top of it stood a tall and sturdy man dressed in black and a small gray monkey. It was Lu Kuan and Xiao Jin. Lu Kuan's eyes flashed with a golden light as he saw the scene in the courtyard. Xiao Jin at the side squeaked and told him the conversation between the two. Lu Kuan sighed and said, "This kid still thinks that he suffered a blow." It turned out that during this year, Lu Kuan had been urging the Zhao siblings to cultivate. He had them consume the medicinal pills that he had bought before to improve their cultivation. When they were close to a bottleneck, he had them cultivate in the middle-level spirit stone spirit gathering array in the secret room. The effects of these measures were extraordinary. Zhao Qingtian reached the 4th level in the 10th month and entered the middle level of qi refining. Sher Chow's talent was astonishing. She started cultivating half a year later than Zhao Qingtian, but she also entered the 4th level. After Zhao Qingtian entered the 4th level, he pestered Lu Kuan to teach him the Vajra esoteric art. Lu Kuan saw that all the medicinal pills had been used up and estimated that there were only 2 months left. The two of them wouldn't be able to reach the 5th level in a short time in this place where spiritual energy was scarce. So he simply taught Zhao Qingtian the 3rd and 4th level of the Vajra esoteric art. On the other hand, Zhao Shui pestered Lu Kuan to teach her various spells. In the beginning, Lu Kuan taught her a few low-level spells step by step. Later on, he remembered that Zhao Shui had the same mutated spiritual root as him. Thus, she could perform all kinds of low-level spells smoothly after learning them once. Lu Kuan directly threw the book of low-level spells to Zhao Shui and let her learn them herself. Sher Chow, who quickly learned these spells, saw her brother cultivating the Vajra esoteric art and became interested. She shouted that she also wanted to take Lu Kuan as her master and let him teach her the Vajra esoteric art. Lu Kuan only hesitated for a moment before agreeing. He accepted Sher Chow as his disciple and taught her the first 4 levels of the Vajra esoteric art. Lu Kuan's previous guess was right. It was very easy for an immortal cultivator to enter the Vajra esoteric art after cultivating it for 2 months. Sher Chow broke through the 2nd level of the Vajra esoteric art. After Zhao Qingtian entered the 4th level, besides cultivating the Vajra esoteric art, he spent the rest of his time cultivating various low-level spells. The scene that just happened was him practicing the entanglement technique. Zhao Qingtian's talent in cultivating the Vajra esoteric art was definitely not bad. Originally, his Vajra esoteric art had already reached the 2nd level. After entering the middle stage of the Qi refinement realm and developing a divine sense, it only took him 2 months to break through the bottleneck and reach the 3rd level of the Vajra esoteric art. It was these two people's rapid progress that gave Lu Kuan a huge blow. One had to know that his basic cultivation technique had only reached the 4th level of the Qi refinement realm with the help of the Foundation Establishment Pill. During this period of time, Lu Kuan's cultivation of the body-tempering art did not make any progress. It was at the level of the initial 12th level of the Qi refinement realm. He felt that it might be because the spirit energy here was insufficient. Even with the spirit gathering array, there was no way to increase his current cultivation. After coming out of seclusion, Lu Kuan had been cultivating the primordial tree body-tempering art. Although his physical strength did not continue to increase, his body's recovery ability had greatly increased. With a strong recovery ability, he could attack his opponent with moves that hurt both sides. After seeing Zhao Qingtian start cultivating the Vajra esoteric art, Lu Kuan wanted to say something to Xiao Jin. Suddenly, the small boat under them began to shake violently. Sensing that the boat was about to lose control, Lu Kuan said in alarm, "Xiao Jin, don't panic. Control the boat and fly down." Xiao Jin was sweating profusely. Light flashed in his hands and entered a formation plate at the front of the flying boat. The entire flying boat swayed and fell. Bang! The flying boat lost control when it was 2 to 3 feet above the ground and smashed into the courtyard. After a short while, Lu Kuan and Xiao Jin slowly got up. The distance of 2 to 3 feet was not enough to injure them. Lu Kuan said to the sweating little monkey, "Xiao Jin, how much demon spiritual energy did you have left before you lost control?" Little monkey, whose face was a little pale, heard this and gestured. After Lu Kuan understood, he said in alarm, "What? You only have 1/10 of your demon spiritual energy left? You're too daring. Last time, when we were flying a low altitude, you only had 1/8 of your demon spiritual energy left. You lost control of the flying boat and almost caused us to fall to our deaths. If you didn't control it well, we're hundreds of feet above the ground. If we fall from such a height, we'll definitely die." Xiao Jin was sweating profusely when he heard this. He was in a daze for a while, then began to squeak again. "You said that your control of your demon spiritual energy was very stable. When you only had 1/10 of your demon spiritual energy left, the output started to become unstable. However, you could still control it, so you landed safely." After Lu Kuan heard Xiao Jin's explanation, he thought for a while. "This means that your control has increased by a lot." The small boat that Lu Kuan and the rest were on was the Fu brothers' flying equipment. It's also a high-grade equipment. When Lu Kuan's spiritual roots appeared, he could easily fly. Furthermore, he could push the flying equipment's speed to the maximum. It's much faster than his imperial flying technique. However, when his spiritual roots disappeared, he couldn't use it. They're about to go on a long journey to the Yang clan. If they encounter any danger and his spiritual roots disappeared, they would be in danger. Lu Kuan thought that Xiao Jin's demon spiritual energy could control the restriction token and could also use equipment. Therefore, he let Xiao Jin learn how to control the flying equipment. He didn't expect that this flying equipment was different from ordinary equipment. Every time Xiao Jin's demon spiritual energy was insufficient, he would lose control. In the end, Lu Kuan realized that controlling the flying equipment was similar to using the telekinesis technique. However, the caster would inject their spiritual energy through the array plate at the front. The telekinesis technique wasn't only related to the amount of spiritual energy, it was also related to the user's divine sense. If one's divine sense was strong, even if they didn't have much spiritual energy, they could still control the flying equipment stably. One had to know that demonic beasts were different from cultivators. Level 1 demonic beasts didn't have divine sense. They only had innate spiritual awareness. Only when they reached level 2, which was equivalent to the Foundation Establishment stage, would demonic beasts be able to produce divine sense. After Xiao Jin reached the large success stage of the Vajra esoteric art, he began to cultivate Lu Kuan's origin fire body tempering art. There were some changes. First, all of his demon spiritual energy could be stored in his body. Therefore, the rogue cultivator from last time couldn't tell that Xiao Jin was a demonic beast. Then, Xiao Jin actually stimulated the power of his divine sense. Although the strength of his divine sense was comparable to Zhao, Qingtian, and the others, it was still very terrifying for a demonic beast. It was also thanks to this that Xiao Jin was able to control the flying equipment. After practicing so many times, plus the situation this time, Lu Kuan could judge Xiao Jin's bottom line. When Xiao Jin only had 1/10 of his demon spiritual energy left, he had to stop the flying equipment. Zhao Qingtian and Sher Chao's divine sense was barely enough. Unfortunately, the difference in spiritual energy was too great. There was no way to control this high-grade equipment. Master, you. And Xiao Jin fell down again. The one who spoke was Sher Chao. She rushed over when she heard the sound. When she saw the small boat equipment on the ground and Lu Kuan and Xiao Jin's faces covered in dust, she knew what had happened. She had seen this scene many times. Lu Kuan glanced at Xiao Jin, coughed lightly, and said, "That's sure. Go and call your father over. We can set off in a few days." After Sher Chao heard this, she was pleasantly surprised. "Master, you're finally going to take us out?" After seeing Lu Kuan nod his head, her face was full of joy. She cast the Imperial Wind technique on herself and ran outside. "Xiao Jin, you go, and call Qingtian too." The little monkey heard and rushed into the courtyard. Lu Kuan put away the flying boat and looked at an item in his storage pouch. His eyes flashed as he muttered to himself, "I'm almost done with my preparations this time. Xiao Jin should have no problem controlling the flying enchanted artifact. I've also learned a trump card. Even if we run into some trouble along the way, I should be able to deal with it." After 10 minutes, Zhao Yuanji, Sher Chao, and Zhao Qingtian all came in front of Lu Kuan. Lu Kuan said to Zhao Yuanji, "Sect leader Zhao, Qingtian, and Shui already have some cultivation. I'm going to take them to the Yang clan to cultivate." Zhao Yuanji looked at his 2 children and felt reluctant to part with them. He couldn't help but ask, "Elder Lu, will they come back?" When they officially enter the Yang clan, they can come back if their cultivation is higher. There's not enough spiritual energy here, so it's not good for their cultivation. They can't stay for too long each time they come back. Although Zhao Yuanji was reluctant to part with them, when he thought about how his children were the hope of the Zhao clan's rise, his expression changed, and he said, "As long as they can bring glory to our Zhao clan, it doesn't matter if they don't come back." Lu Kuan looked at Zhao Yuanji's eager and reluctant expression and suddenly thought of his late parents. He said, "I'll use 10 days to guide the inner disciples in the Vajra arts. Qingtian, Shui, spend more time with your father in these 10 days. Chapter 107. In the southernmost part of Luzhou, there was a vast mountain range. The mountain range was filled with lush trees, and each mountain range was like an independent giant mountain peak. They were connected by white ribbon-like clouds and mist. In the depths of this vast and steep mountain range, there was a beautiful mountain range. Among them, there were 5 mountain peaks that were the most eye-catching. The mountain peak in the middle towered into the clouds. The other 4 mountain peaks surrounded the main peak in the middle like stars surrounding the moon. If one looked closely, they would discover that at the foot of the main peak, there were many dazzling buildings of all kinds. There were vague figures of people moving around. On each mountain peak, there were some flying beasts and even humans flying in the air from time to time. It was like a sacred place for immortals. This sacred place for immortals was the famous immortal cultivation sect in the entire Wei country, the Yang clan. The Yang clan was located in the depths of the Yang mountain range. Other than immortal cultivators, no mortals could come here. Even top-notch experts could not cross so many steep mountain ranges, not to mention that there were some powerful demonic beasts in these mountain ranges. At the foot of the main peak of the Yang clan, there was a rather majestic building. This was the clan's meeting hall. When there were matters in the clan that needed to be discussed by the peak masters of each mountain, these people would come here to discuss. Generally speaking, the peak masters who handled routine affairs in the clan were all at the foundation establishment stage. Not only in the Yang clan, but also in most immortal cultivation sects. There were very few immortal cultivators above the core formation stage who handled routine affairs. This was because after the core formation stage, the progress of one's cultivation was very slow. If one spent a lot of energy on other things, it would be very difficult to break through to a higher realm. The peak masters of each peak of the Yang clan were all immortal cultivators who were proficient in management. Other than cultivation, they spent the rest of their time and energy on managing the clan. Although the time for cultivation was reduced, the Yang clan treated them well. Every year, they were given a lot of spirit stones to make up for the loss of cultivation time. Currently, there were 4 foundation establishment immortal cultivators of different ages sitting in the conference hall. The one sitting at the very top was an elderly man wearing white clothes. His face was as clear as jade, and his hair and beard were all white. His eyes were tightly shut, and his white eyebrows were furrowed, as if he was thinking about some difficult problem. This person was shockingly at the perfected foundation establishment realm, and was only a step away from the Golden Core realm. He was the peak master of the Yang clan's weapon refining peak, Nia Wufeng. Speaking of Nia Wufeng, the foundation establishment immortal cultivators of the Wei Nation might not recognize him. However, it would be a different story if they were to talk about Nia Wufeng by his other name. 100 years ago, Nia Wufeng's name was Nia Feng, and he was well known among the Foundation establishment immortal cultivators of the entire Wei Nation. At that time, he was not a disciple of the weapon refining peak. He was not famous for his weapon refining skills, but for his unpredictable wind shadow escape technique. Nia Feng was the wind spirit root cultivator that Shun Mingyao had heard from the elders in the clan. Not only was he proficient in powerful wind-type spells, but his strange escape technique could also allow him to escape from the hands of core formation immortal cultivators. Perhaps he was too outstanding, and on the day that his spirit root disappeared, he was ambushed and escaped with serious injuries. After returning to the clan with serious injuries, Nia Wufeng changed his name to Nia Wufeng and left the Blue Sun Peak to enter the Weapon Refining Peak. He concentrated on researching the art of weapon refining and never left the Yang clan again. After becoming the peak master of the weapon refining peak, Nia Wufeng's cultivation gradually reached the perfected foundation establishment realm. Sitting beside Nia Wufeng was a short-haired woman. Her hair was slightly blue and her appearance was not outstanding. However, her eyes were as bright as black gems, as if they could see through people's hearts. Her figure was relatively thin and small. She was the peak master of the Jade Sun Peak, Duruoqiao. Her cultivation was at the middle foundation establishment realm. At this moment, she was talking eloquently to the fat middle-aged man beside her. The fat man's expression was depressed, and he looked at Duruoqiao with a trace of helplessness. He had no choice but to respond with in sounds. This man was the peak master of the Morning Sun Peak, Zhu Xiaofeng. Although Zhu Xiaofeng's cultivation was at the late foundation establishment realm, he was helpless in the face of Du Ruoqiao's long-winded words. Finally, a rather young man sat opposite the two people. He had a round face and short hair. His figure was well-proportioned and his face was solemn. If one looked carefully, this person was actually cultivating and did not waste any time. This person was the peak master of the Blue Sun Peak, Lu Xiao. He was the youngest among the peak masters present, but his cultivation had also reached the middle foundation establishment realm. After an unknown amount of time, Nia Wufeng, who was sitting at the head of the table, opened his eyes. However, his tightly knitted brows did not relax. It seemed that some difficult problem had not been solved. He looked at the other three people, coughed lightly, and said, "Junior brother Zhu, Lu Shitty, junior sister Du, please stop for a moment. After hearing this, Lu Xiao slowly opened his eyes. Du Ruoqiao looked at Nie Wufeng with some dissatisfaction. However, she did not dare to anger this senior brother with an astonishing cultivation and stopped nagging. Zhu Xiaofeng wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked at this senior brother Nie with gratitude. Nie Wufeng saw that everyone was looking at him and said, "What do you think of the changes in the strength of my Yiyang clan over the years?" The people below looked at each other. Didn't senior brother Nie have something to announce? Why did he ask this question? The few people did not know what senior brother Nie meant. However, Zhu Xiaofeng thought for a moment and replied, "Forgive junior brother for speaking bluntly. Our Yiyang clan has not had a new core formation cultivator for more than 100 years. However, like the miraculous gate, there are new core formation cultivators appearing in the cultivation sects of other provinces. Our Yiyang clan strength can be said to be getting weaker and weaker. In the long run, the sect's decline is imminent." After listening to Zhu Xiaofeng's description, Du Ruoqiao rolled her eyes and said, "Senior brother Zhu, your words are too serious. Although our Yiyang clan strength is somewhat weak, there are still many sects who come and spend a lot of money to invite our sect's master refiner to make a move. Based on the many sects that our sect has been on good terms with for so many years, we won't decline no matter what. Besides, we still have our grandmaster." Hearing this, Zhu Xiaofeng did not refute. Instead, he looked at senior brother Nie. In his opinion, senior brother Nie must have a deep meaning for saying this. Lu Xiao, who was on the side, seemed to have thought of something. He looked at Nie Wufeng with a rather complicated expression. Nie Wufeng looked at everyone and sighed. He said, "Junior sister Du, your thinking is too simple. The competition for resources in the cultivation world is cruel. Friendship is friendship, and interest is interest. You only see the friendly side of other cultivators towards our sect, but you don't see their greed. Our Yiyang clan sits on so many mineral veins that other sects have long been jealous. They all want to occupy this mountain range. In this way, with their strength, it is very likely that their weapon refining skills will improve a lot in a few hundred years. If not for our Grandmaster, who is at the nascent soul stage, I'm afraid that other sects in the Wei Nation would have killed their way to our sect and taken it by force. However, Grandmaster can protect the sect for a while, but he can't protect the sect forever. Therefore, Grandmaster issued a decree to our peak's martial Uncle Zhang some time ago." "What? Grandmaster has issued a decree?" The peak masters below were inexplicably surprised. One had to know that they had never seen this Grandmaster before. They had only heard some of his deeds from the core formation stage, martial uncle in the sect. This was the first time they had heard of the Grandmaster issuing a decree. Nie Wufeng nodded and said, somewhat self-deprecatingly, "I'm sure all of you know that because our sect's weapon refining skills are extremely powerful, many disciples with extraordinary talents have transferred to the weapon refining peak to learn the weapon refining technique. As a result, they have diverted too much of their energy and missed the best period to improve their cultivation." After hearing this, the peak masters below all had strange expressions. This sentence seemed to be referring to Nie Wufeng. Although it was extremely difficult for someone with a hidden spirit root to advance to the core formation stage, it was not impossible for Nie Wufeng to create his own wind shadow escape technique. However, now that Nie Wufeng was almost 200 years old, his qi and blood were gradually deteriorating, and he had missed the best period. Nie Wufeng saw the expressions of these junior brothers and continued, "Grandmaster's decree is that in the future, new disciples with outstanding talents will be given priority to enter the other three peaks. The weapon refining peak will be the last to be selected. Furthermore, for the next 200 years, disciples of the other peaks are not allowed to transfer to the weapon refining peak. Junior brothers, Grandmaster wants to use this method to allow disciples with good talents to spend more time on cultivation." Really, the peak masters were extremely surprised. Grandmaster's decree will also be passed on to the other core formation stage uncles of the other peaks. When you return, you will be informed by them. Nie Wufeng also admired Grandmaster's courage. He sighed in his heart. If Grandmaster does this, the strength of the disciples of the sect will indeed increase. However, after 100 years, the weapon refining peak will weaken. If by that time, the strength of the sect cannot increase greatly, our sect will be in even more danger. Of course, Nie Wufeng would not tell his junior brothers what he was thinking. Grandmaster's decree was not something that a mere foundation establishment stage cultivator like him could change. If Grandmaster gave this decree 100 years ago, I might really be able to enter the core formation stage. However, if this is the case, the things that I have been researching for so many years will not exist. Right when Nie Wufeng was pondering, Zhu Xiaofeng suddenly said, "But senior brother Nie, many new disciples admire our sect's equipment refinement techniques. If these disciples aren't willing to enter the other peaks, then what should we do?" Nie Wufeng coldly snorted and said, "Our Yang clan is still a great sect of cultivators. We have tens of thousands of years of history. If they don't comply, then they will not be accepted into the sect. Junior brother understands. Junior brothers, if there are no other questions, I will return to the weapon refining peak first." The others shook their heads and clasped their hands towards Nie Wufeng. Nie Wufeng nodded his head, and his whole body emitted a white light. He turned into a white breeze and shot out of the hall. In a few breaths, he disappeared without a trace. Lu Xiao closed his eyes and felt for a moment. He sighed and said, "Senior brother Nie's wine shadow escape technique is becoming more and more marvelous. I don't know if you have noticed, but the breeze that senior brother Nie used just now could only be seen with the naked eye. Our spiritual sense could not detect it at all." Zhu Xiaofeng, who had the highest cultivation level among the three, nodded and said, "That's right. Even with my late foundation establishment stage spiritual sense, I could not detect it. If we did not see senior brother Nie use the technique, we would only think of him as a breeze." Hearing this, Duruoqiao's face was full of amazement. She then said in a regretful tone, "Senior brother Nie is so talented. It is really a pity. Senior brothers, I heard from senior sister Luo that senior brother Nie joined the weapon refining peak because he almost lost his life in that sneak attack 100 years ago. It is said that he joined the weapon refining peak because, hey, why are you leaving? Why didn't you say goodbye? I just started talking. Aren't you curious?" Zhu Xiaofeng and Lu Xiao, who had already walked to the door, looked at each other. They both took out their flying magic tools, and under the control of their foundation establishment stage spiritual power, they flew towards their respective peaks at an extremely fast speed, leaving behind a depressed Duruoqiao. Chapter 108. At the foot of a mountain outside the Yang mountain range, there was a small town shrouded in fog all year round. Any nearby villagers could only see the outline of the town and could not pass through the fog. The surrounding villagers were not surprised. According to the elders in the village, this town existed when the village moved here and there were immortals living in it. Sometimes the naughty children in the village would walk into the fog out of curiosity and then fall asleep outside the fog the next day. On this day, 3 people and a monkey appeared outside the foggy town. It was almost winter, and bone-piercing cold winds were blowing everywhere. These people were actually only wearing thin clothes, and looking at their faces, there was not the slightest trace of coldness. These people were Lu Kuan and his group. It took them a month to travel from the central part of Lu province to the southern part. It was not that Lu Kuan and his group took a detour, but the Zhao siblings clamored to wander around the bigger cities to broaden their horizons. However, the map in Lu Kuan's hand was drawn by cultivators. It marked some mountains and rivers, as well as cultivator markets and cultivator clans. There were only 1 or 2 mortal cities marked. Therefore, they spent most of their time looking for a city. Due to the delay, it took them such a long time. Perhaps it was because Lu Kuan and the others took the route of a mortal city, but they didn't meet a single cultivator along the way. From the looks of it, cultivators wouldn't go to a mortal city unless there were special circumstances. As they approached the Yang mountain range, Lu Kuan and his group could feel a significant change in the spiritual qi around them. He used to feel the richest spiritual qi in the Waterfall Valley, but here they were not close to the Yang mountain range, and the spiritual qi was not inferior to the valley. Looking at the foggy town in front of them, Lu Kuan took out a map and compared it with the map. He showed a trace of joy and said to Zhao Qingtian next to him, Qingtian, this is the Yeyang clan's market. It can be said that it is the most prosperous market in Lu province. Behind the market is the Yeyang mountain range. Hey, there are other cultivators. At this time, a shuttle-shaped magic tool appeared in the sky and rapidly shot in their direction. After Lu Kuan's golden eyes discovered it, his divine sense firmly locked onto the magic tool in the storage bag. As they approached the Yang mountain range, he had been vigilant of strange cultivators. Now, he really encountered one. There were two silhouettes on this shuttle-shaped magic tool. One was a beautiful young woman dressed in red, and her face could not be seen clearly. The other was a little girl about 12 years old. She was very cute and looked like she was carved out of jade. Their shuttle-shaped magic tool directly outside of the town, not far from Lu and his group. Lu Kuan's eyes flickered with golden light as he observed the two unfamiliar cultivators. He found that the little girl had a qi level of the 6th realm. Her talent was astounding. The young woman in red next to her was even more unfathomable. Her cultivation level was far beyond that of the meditation level. It's a foundation establishment cultivator. Lu Kuan looked quite calm on the surface, but he was a little uneasy inside. He quickly pulled the curious Zhao siblings aside and bowed to the young woman in red. He put on a smile and said in a low voice, "So, it's a foundation establishment senior. Junior Lu Kuan has offended you. Today, I just happened to bring the younger generation of my clan here." While Lu Kuan was talking, the young woman in red put away her flying magic tool and pulled the little girl into the fog. She acted as if she did not see Lu Kuan, but the little girl looked back and sized them up. Lu Kuan was left with a flattering expression. He cupped his hands and bowed in place. He did not even finish his words. Zhao Qingtian's face was red. After the two of them disappeared into the mist, he finally couldn't hold it in anymore and laughed out loud. Even Zhao Shui, and Xiao Jin couldn't help but laugh. Lu Kuan looked a little embarrassed, but then he put on a straight face and said in a lecturing tone, "What do you know? In the cultivation world, the weak are prey to the strong. If you don't put on a humble front in front of the strong, you won't even know if you're killed." After all, Lu Kuan had worked hard on Earth. He had mastered the saying, "Speak the human language when you see the human language, and speak the ghost language when you see the ghost." Now, when he met a powerful cultivator, it was just like when he met a company leader or a government official on Earth. He had to put in enough effort on the surface. However, Zhao Qingtian and the others acted as if they did not hear him and laughed even louder. Lu Kuan could only shake his head. When Zhao Qingtian was almost done laughing, he said to him resentfully, "Are you done laughing? You don't need to use the sound-transmitting talisman to send a message." Zhao Qingtian stopped laughing. He lifted the robe at his waist, revealing a gray storage bag. This storage bag belonged to the middle stage Qi refining rogue cultivator that Xiao Jin killed last time. Although that rogue cultivator did not have any assets, the space in his storage bag was not bad. It was exactly the same size as Lu Kuan's. Zhao Qingtian patted the storage bag. A green light flashed, and a small yellow talisman appeared in his hand. Then, he poured magic power into the talisman and muttered something. The sound-transmitting talisman disappeared into the fog in front of them. After a short while, a gap slowly opened in the fog in front of them. Lu Kuan and the others walked in one by one. After the fog dissipated, the scenery in front of them changed greatly. From the outside, it looked like a small town, but from the inside, it looked like a large city. There were all kinds of pedestrians walking around, and most of them were actually mortals. Suddenly, a man in a blue robe sitting on the side of the street walked towards Lu Kuan and the others. He said with a smile, "Fellow Taoists, I am Huang Yanhua. Greetings. I see that you all look unfamiliar. Is this your first time coming to the Yang clan's market? Lu Kuan looked carefully and found that this person was only a third-level Qi refining cultivator. He cupped his hands and said, "Yes, I am. This time, I came to bring the younger generation of the clan to broaden their horizons." This blue-robed man was only a third-level Qi refining cultivator. He didn't have a divine sense and couldn't use the Heaven's Eye technique to detect cultivation. He only relied on his own intuition and believed that Lu Kuan was a late-stage Qi refining cultivator. Therefore, he came forward. The blue-robed man said, "I have lived in the Yang clan's market for many years. If fellow Taoist comes to buy some materials or resources, I will definitely help fellow Taoist find the most affordable merchant. In the end, I only need to charge fellow Taoist a low-grade spirit stone as an errant fee." Lu Kuan didn't expect that there would be a cultivator doing this kind of work. When he was in the Lingming market, only mortals did this kind of work. Huang Yinhua saw that Lu Kuan was hesitating and said, "Fellow Taoist, you brought the younger generation of the clan here this time. You should want to try your luck at the Yang clan's entrance selection, right? I am very familiar with the entrance selection process. I can even help fellow Taoist cut the line and be tested by the Yang clan's disciples earlier. Everyone knows that the earlier you are tested, the higher your chances of being selected." Lu Kuan's expression was somewhat moved. He didn't expect that they would come at such a good time and encounter the entrance selection. He said to Huang Yinhua, "I am Lu Kuan. Since it's like this, why don't fellow Taoists take us around the market? I will give you the spirit stone first. If you're satisfied, I will give you another one after this." After he finished speaking, Lu Kuan threw a low-grade spirit stone to the man. Huang Yinhua quickly caught the spirit stone in his hand and carefully felt it. He smiled and stuffed the spirit stone into his clothes. Lu Kuan discovered that Huang Yunfei didn't even have a storage pouch. It was obvious that he was quite embarrassed. He opened his mouth and asked, "Fellow Taoist Huang, I have a few questions that I hope fellow Taoists can answer." At this moment, Huang Yunfei had already regarded Lu Kuan as a powerful cultivator. Who would be so generous without some status? He immediately said in a somewhat flattering tone, "Fellow Taoist, please ask whatever you have." Lu Kuan looked at the bustling town and asked, "Why are there so many mortals in this market of the Yang clan? Why is the Yang clan recruiting disciples here?" Huang Yunfei heard this and said with a smile, "I also guessed that fellow Taoist would have this question. In fact, it is not only fellow Taoist, Lu. Other cultivators who come here for the first time also have this question. It's like this. The Yang clan is a large cultivation sect. There are many disciples in the sect. It is said that there are close to 100 foundation establishment cultivators. Think about it. With so many foundation establishment cultivators, each of them can live for more than 200 years. Naturally, their descendants won't be few. Among these descendants, those with good spiritual roots will be accepted into the Yang clan. As for the rest who don't have spiritual roots and have poor spiritual roots, it will be difficult to arrange them. We all know that the Yang clan's refining techniques are famous far and wide. The market here is also getting busier and busier. The higher-ups of the Yang clan let the remaining descendants work in this market. In the long run, the scale of the market of the Yang clan grew bigger and bigger, gradually developing into what it is today. Most of the mortals in this town are the descendants of the foundation establishment cultivators of the Yang clan. The probability of spiritual roots appearing among the descendants of cultivators is much higher than among mortals. Therefore, every 10 years, the cultivators of the Yang clan will come to this town and test the spiritual roots of the children here. Those with good spiritual roots will enter the sect to cultivate. Those with poor spiritual roots will continue to stay in the market after they are taught the basic cultivation techniques. At this point, Huang Yunfei said self-deprecatingly, "I am a cultivator with poor spiritual roots. I do this job because I want to earn more spiritual stones to advance my cultivation." Lu Kuan nodded thoughtfully. Huang Yunfei continued, "Gradually, some rogue cultivators and cultivator clans also know about this practice of the Yang clan. These days, they will come to this market to see if there's a chance to be accepted into the sect. So that's how it is. Fellow Taoist Huang, I know a rogue cultivator friend. His ancestors used to be a vassal clan of the Yang clan, but now they are in decline. He met me a while ago and said that he has some kind of entry token that can directly enter the Yang clan. I don't know if fellow Taoist has heard of it before. After Huang Yunfei heard this, he revealed an envious expression and said, I saw this entry token 10 years ago. It is said that only clans that have made great contributions to the Yang clan will have this item. No matter what kind of spiritual roots their descendants have, they can use this entry token to enter the Yang clan. Lu Kuan raised his eyebrows and asked, Fellow Taoist, you saw it 10 years ago. Could it be that it was also when the Yang clan was selecting disciples? That's right. That cultivator has incomparably mixed spiritual roots of 5 elements. Even with such poor spiritual roots, he can directly enter the Yang clan. I have 4 spiritual roots, but I can only earn spiritual stones in this market. Shun, 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 shun estimated. Lu Kuan made a decision in his heart and said to Huang Yunfei, Fellow Taoist Huang, take me to buy demonic beast materials first. Find a shop with a fair price. Taoist Huang. SS. Lu Kuan's group followed Huang Yunfei into the large market. The market of this town was complete. It was divided into many streets. There was a magic tool street, a medicine street, a raw material street, a talisman street, a jade slip street, a miscellaneous street, and the rest was the residential area. As Lu Kuan went deeper, besides many chi condensation stage cultivators, he also saw a dozen or so cultivators with unfathomable magic power. They were definitely cultivators above the foundation establishment stage. Lu Kuan sighed in his heart. It really is a large market. There are so many foundation establishment stage cultivators here. The market was set up with a forbidden flying formation. All cultivators were unable to fly. After about the time it took to eat a meal, Lu Kuan's group walked into the depths of the raw material street and stopped in front of a 3-story shop. Luo Clan Trading Company was printed on the shop's signboard. Under the gaze of Lu Kuan's golden eye, these 4 flamboyant characters unexpectedly emitted a strong fluctuation. This caused Lu Kuan to feel a burst of dizziness. He quickly withdrew his gaze, and his face was filled with shock. Seeing this, Huang Yunfei hurriedly said, Everyone, please don't use your divine sense to pry into this Luo Clan Trading Company signboard. This is a top-grade magic tool, refined by a core formation stage cultivator of the Yang clan. It will reflect the divine sense of lower-level cultivators. While they were speaking, Zhao Qing Tian and Sher Chao's faces also became pale. They also probed the signboard. Fortunately, their divine senses were weak, and they didn't suffer any injuries. After Lu Kuan heard this, he was overwhelmed with shock. He doubtfully said, A top-grade magic tool? A core formation stage cultivator? Could it be that this Luo Clan Trading Company was opened by a core formation stage cultivator? Huang Yunfei explained, This Luo clan is very famous in this area of the Yang mountain range. The cultivators of the Luo clan are all disciples of the Yang clan. There are 5 or 6 foundation establishment stage cultivators and even more chi condensation stage cultivators. However, the one who is truly revered by others is the ancestor of the Luo clan. The ancestor of the Luo clan is one of the few core formation stage cultivators of the Yang clan. The Luo Clan Trading Company was opened by the Luo clan. Although the people of the Luo clan are somewhat arrogant, they follow the rules when doing business. In addition to the reputation of being a core formation stage cultivator, many cultivators who want to sell materials will come to the Luo Clan Trading Company. Lu Kuan listened to Huang Yunfei's explanation as he walked into the trading company. The first floor was the size of an ordinary courtyard. There were only 4 counters. At this moment, it was quite busy. Many cultivators were lining up. There was a woman wearing red clothes. When she saw Lu Kuan and his group, she walked forward and respectfully bowed. With a smile on her face, she asked in a clear voice, "Greetings, immortal masters. May I ask if you are here to sell materials?" Seeing this mortal woman speak neither modestly nor humbly, Lu Kuan felt that this Luo clan had put in a lot of effort. He replied, "We are selling demonic beast materials. However, there are a lot of them. There's so many people on the first floor. It's not very suitable for trading." When the woman heard this, she respectfully replied, "If immortal masters have a lot of materials to sell, please go to the VIP area on the second floor. There is no need to line up on the first floor." After she finished speaking, she led Lu Kuan and his group to the stairs. When Huang Yunfei heard Lu Kuan's words, he was also surprised. He had seen cultivators selling large amounts of materials before. However, those people were all elite disciples of the Yang clan. He didn't expect that Lu Kuan was also at this level. The Zhao siblings didn't feel anything about Lu Kuan's words. They only looked around. When they saw the cultivators on the first floor taking out all kinds of strange materials, they were very surprised and even exclaimed in surprise. Under the woman's guidance, they passed through a circular staircase and arrived at the second floor. The second floor was about the same size as the first floor. However, there were 4 light blue rectangular screens that separated the 2 floors into 4 areas. Seeing them go upstairs, a middle-aged man in red clothes walked forward. He glanced at Lu Kuan and his group with a slightly disappointed expression. However, he still politely said, "Fellow Taoists, this must be your first time coming to the Luo Trading Company. The second floor is where we trade large amounts of materials. If fellow Taoists don't have a lot of materials, you can go to the first floor to trade." Lu Kuan stared at the man. He was actually at the 10th layer of qi refining. No wonder he said that. No matter how he looked at Lu Kuan and his group, they were at the 4th layer of qi refining. Normal people wouldn't think that they had a large amount of materials. Lu Kuan smiled slightly. He slapped his storage bag, and nearly 20 demon wolf pelts appeared on the ground. Immediately after, he put away the materials and said indifferently, "Can these materials be traded on the second floor?" When the red-clothed man saw the demon beast pelts, he was slightly surprised. He nodded and said, "I was rude. These materials can definitely be traded on the second floor. Fellow Taoists, please." They went behind a screen and saw the red-clothed man inject a strand of mana into the screen. The rectangular screen connected to the end and turned into a circular shape. When the red-clothed man saw Lu Kuan's slightly nervous expression, he quickly said, "Fellow Taoists, don't misunderstand. This screen is a magic item. It can block out divine sense and sound. It allows fellow Taoists to trade here without worry." Lu Kuan had already felt that this screen was different, but he didn't expect it to have such an effect. After hearing the red-clothed man's explanation, he relaxed. He placed the demon wolf pelts, claws, and fangs on the ground and said straightforwardly, "Fellow Taoist, how many spirit stones do you think these materials are worth?" The red-clothed man carefully looked at these materials. He found that there were no less than 6 high-level demon wolves and 10 middle-level demon wolves. He couldn't help but reveal a shocked expression. This was a small demon wolf pack. Even 2 or 3 late-stage qi refining cultivators might not be able to deal with it. The red-clothed man looked at the Zhao siblings behind Lu Kuan and thought that he was the housekeeper of some cultivation clan. He calculated in his mind and said politely, "According to the market price, these materials are worth 428 spirit stones. How about this? Since fellow Taoist has come to our Luo clan's trading company for the first time, how about 430 spirit stones?" When Lu Kuan heard this, he immediately nodded and agreed to the trade. This price was a bit more than Shun Mingyao's estimate of 400 spirit stones. When the red-clothed man saw Lu Kuan nod, he took out a pile of spirit stones and gave it to him. When he saw Lu Kuan nod in confirmation, he put away all the materials on the ground. After Lu Kuan put these spirit stones into his storage pouch, he looked at the red-clothed man who was about to get up. He chuckled and said, "Fellow Taoist, don't worry. I still have materials to sell." After he finished speaking, a lot of materials suddenly appeared on the ground. Some of them were even demon beast corpses. About half an hour later, Lu Kuan walked out of the Luo clan's trading company. The red-clothed man followed Lu Kuan to the entrance of the store. His expression was completely different from before. He kept nodding and bowing. At this time, most of the materials in Lu Kuan's storage pouch had been sold. They were exchanged for more than 1,100 spirit stones. This made Lu Kuan's assets break through the 2,000 mark. Lu Kuan dared to sell a lot of materials here because the Yang clan's market square was a place to sell magic tools to cultivators from other countries. If there were murders and robberies here, who would still come here? Previously, the Lingming market square was different. Crooks mixed in with the honest folk. If you were targeted and ambushed, you wouldn't even know how you died. After the successful transaction, Lu Kuan was in a good mood. He said to Huang Yunfei, "Fellow Taoist Huang, can you take us to the other streets?" Seeing Huang Yunfei in a daze, Lu Kuan patted his shoulder. Huang Yunfei was already dizzy from the transaction of over 1,000 spirit stones. After being patted a few times by Lu Kuan, he came back to his senses. When he heard the request, he immediately asked respectfully, "Fellow Taoist Lu, which street do you want to go to first?" Lu Kuan thought for a moment, then said, "Let's go to Talisman Street." Then he said to the Zhao siblings, "Qing Tian Shui, I'll buy you some defensive talismans in a while. Your magic power is low now, so these are just right for you. I've already taught you how to activate them." Zhao Qing Tian grumbled, "Master, I thought you had forgotten about us." Even Shared Chao pouted and said, "That's right. You didn't buy anything for us for half a day." "Well, didn't I remember now?" Chapter 110. In the center of the Yang clan market square was a large square. In the center of the square was a high platform. It was said that this place was specially built for the Yang clan. Every 10 years, the Yang clan's cultivators would come here to recruit disciples. Today was the day of the once-in-a-decade Yang clan's entrance test. At this time, the entire square was surrounded by people. The outside of the square was basically made up of mortals, while the people lining up in the middle of the square were all cultivators. These cultivators had different cultivation levels. There were men and women, and there were even a few older cultivators standing in the middle. At this time, Lu Kuan and the others were standing in the crowd outside the square. In the past 2 days, Lu Kuan had bought a lot of spare talismans in the market square. When he was shopping on the weapon refining street, he accidentally found a long staff magic tool mixed with fragments of earth fire stone. When he was refining fine iron in the Lingming market square, he heard the 2 weapon refining peak disciples describe this earth fire stone. Large pieces of earth fire stone could spontaneously release powerful flames. Small pieces of earth fire stone needed to be stimulated by magic power to release great power. Now that Xiao Jin was already an upper-tier class 1 demonic beast, she had started to cultivate Lu Kuan's Primordial Fire body tempering art. The Primordial Fire shield and Primordial Fire were quite powerful. This magic tool, mixed with fragments of earth fire stone, was just right for Xiao Jin. Lu Kuan and the shop owner haggled and spent a total of 1,000 spirit stones to buy these 2 high-grade magic tools. However, when he thought about how Xiao Jin's strength would increase greatly after obtaining these magic tools, he didn't feel distressed about the spirit stones. After they finished, they gave Huang Yunfei 2 low-grade spirit stones and stayed in the cultivators in the center of the market square. Just like the Lingming market square, there were all kinds of temporary cave residences. They began to wait for the arrival of the Yang clan's cultivators. Lu Kuan stayed here for a while and found that there were actually older cultivators lining up. He was a little puzzled. Fortunately, there were many people here, and he heard some people in the crowd outside talking. Didn't the Yang clan only recruit disciples under the age of 30? How come even cultivators in their 40s have come this time? You are too ignorant. I heard that the Yang clan had some changes and that the threshold for recruitment has been lowered. These older cultivators have all heard the news and came to give it a try. I didn't expect this friend to be so well-informed. Please enlighten me. Haha, one of my grandfather's childhood friends is an official disciple of the Yang clan. This Yang clan. Several cultivators in the crowd heard the discussion in the crowd and silently walked into the square and lined up. Lu Kuan, who was in the crowd, heard the discussions of the people around him. After thinking for a while, he led the Zhao siblings into the square and began to line up. At the front of the line, there was a young man wearing a yellow robe. This man had dark skin, thin eyebrows, and small eyes. His appearance was very ordinary, but looking at his cultivation, he was at the peak of the qi refining stage. At this time, he was slightly tired as he tested the spirit roots of the cultivators lining up. This man was called Shun Lei, a disciple of the Yang clan's Blue Sun Peak. His task was to test the spirit roots. In this half-day, Shun Lei had tested hundreds of people. Although he was a little tired, he didn't dare to relax, because there were 2 Foundation Establishment Stage martial uncles watching from the high platform behind him. If the aptitude met the standard, he would be sent to the high platform for the 2 martial uncles to reconfirm. If he tested incorrectly, he would be scolded. Now, besides the 2 Foundation Establishment Stage cultivators, there were about 20 young men and women standing on the high platform. These people were full of excitement. They were the cultivators who passed the aptitude test. One of the Foundation Establishment Stage cultivators was a young man. His magic power was a little unstable. Experienced cultivators could tell that he was a new Foundation Establishment Stage cultivator. He was the same as Shun Lei, a disciple of the Blue Sun Peak. His name was Ding Peng. Ding Peng looked at the cultivators coming in one after another in the square and said with a frown, "Senior Brother Qian, this time the sex aptitude requirements are a little low. In the past, only those with 3 spirit roots and above were recruited. Now, as long as they reached the 10th level of the qi refining stage before the age of 40, they are allowed to enter the sect." The other Foundation Establishment Stage cultivator was a middle-aged man. His magic power was abnormally stable. He was a peak early Foundation Establishment Stage cultivator. His name was Qian Shi, a disciple of the Blue Sun Peak. Qian Shi replied, "Junior Brother Ding, I'm sure you know that after these disciples enter the sect, the 3 peaks other than the weapon refining peak will have priority in selecting disciples. In this way, the weapon refining peak may not be able to get fresh blood. Therefore, after a discussion among the peak masters, they decided to recruit some slightly strong loose cultivators so that the weapon refining peak can maintain its legacy. This time, not many loose cultivators receive the news. Presumably, in the next 10 years, there will be more people." Ding Peng was a little surprised. He asked, "The peak masters in the sect are letting loose cultivators into the weapon refining peak. But will the weapon refining peak agree?" Qin Shi said with certainty, "I heard from our Blue Sun Peak's peak master, Senior Brother Zhu, that this idea was proposed by Senior Brother Nye. Since it was Senior Brother Nye who proposed it, the other peaks have no reason to oppose." When Ding Peng heard the name Senior Brother Nye, he was a little surprised. "Senior Brother Nye, you mean the peak master of the weapon refining peak? Who else but Senior Brother Nye? I admire Senior Brother Nye the most in the sect. It's a pity that he is past his prime. Senior Brother is already over 200 years old and has missed the best time to form his core. Otherwise, with Senior Brother Nye's strength, after entering the core formation stage, even a late core formation stage cultivator would not be able to do anything." Ding Peng was shocked. This Senior Brother Nye is so powerful. "Junior Brother Ding, you just advanced to the Foundation Establishment stage. Of course you don't know Senior Brother Nye's name. You have to know that 100 years ago, Senior Brother Nye had already reached the late qi refining stage. The wind shadow escape technique he created was incomparably marvelous. Even early core formation stage cultivators were able to catch him. It's a pity that Senior Brother Nye has a hidden spiritual root. When his spiritual root disappeared, he was ambushed and was seriously injured. His cultivation also dropped to the early Foundation Establishment stage. After returning to the sect, he entered the weapon refining peak. It's said that he is studying the art of weapon refining and wants to refine a special kind of magic weapon. Although senior brother Nya was distracted by studying the art of weapon refining, 100 years of time was enough for him to recover his cultivation. He even went one step further and reached the peak of the foundation establishment stage, the false core stage. After recultivating, senior martial brother Nya's magic power is abnormally dense and his strength is even more valiant. I heard from the core formation martial uncle in the sect that senior martial brother Nya can even fight core formation cultivators without using magic treasures for a short period of time to a draw. It's a pity that senior brother Nya's life is coming to an end. His chi and blood are exhausted. Furthermore, senior brother Nya has a hidden spiritual root. The chances of him reaching the core formation stage are really not high. Ding Peng listened to Qian Shi's introduction and was dumbfounded. He had never heard of a foundation establishment stage cultivator being able to fight a core formation stage cultivator. The difference between the strength of a core formation stage cultivator and a foundation establishment stage cultivator was like heaven and earth. Qian Shi was just about to say something when she heard the noise coming from the square. She frowned and said, "What's going on down there?" Ding Peng heard her and looked down the stage. At the same time, Xinlei also walked up and respectfully said to them, "Martial uncles, someone is here with an entry token." "What? An entry token?" Qian Shi said in surprise. She then looked in the direction Xinlei was pointing and saw a burly man and a young man and woman. Judging from their cultivation, they were both in the fourth layer of the Qi refining stage. Lu Kuan had already asked around and found out that an entry token was very important to the Yang clan. It would be decided after one entered the clan. In addition, the threshold for entering the Yang clan was lowered this time, so he showed Shun Lei his entry token. Amidst the noise of the surrounding cultivators, he saw the two foundation establishment stage cultivators on the stage walk towards him. Qian Shi looked at the 30-something-year-old cultivator and frowned. "You're the one who has an entry token?" Lu Kuan felt the other party's strong spiritual pressure. He bowed and said respectfully, "Reporting to senior, it's me. However, these entry tokens belong to my two disciples. They both have excellent aptitudes." "Excellent aptitudes?" Hearing this, the cultivator, surnamed Qian, looked at the Zhao siblings. He walked over and put his hands on their shoulders. Then, a look of surprise appeared on his face. This young man has a dual attribute spirit root of fire and wood. His aptitudes are not bad. This young girl, ice spirit root. She actually has an ice spirit root. Shun Lei and the cultivator, surnamed Ding, were shocked. They did not expect this little girl to have such excellent aptitudes. Who has an ice spirit root? At this time, a red figure suddenly appeared beside them. Lu Kuan looked and found that it was the foundation establishment stage female cultivator he met outside the fog. When the cultivator, surnamed Qian, saw this woman, his face lit up. He went forward and said fawningly, "So it's senior sister Luo. It's this little girl. She has an ice spirit root." After saying that, he pushed Sher Chow in front of the red-clothed woman. The red-clothed woman ignored the cultivator, surnamed Qian, and put her hand on Sher Chow's wrist. She closed her eyes and felt it. Then, she opened her eyes and murmured, "It really is an ice spirit root. This is great. Our Jade Yang Peak finally has a few disciples with extraordinary aptitudes." The other two foundation establishment stage cultivators were not surprised that the red-clothed woman directly put Sher Chow into the Jade Yang Peak. In the Yang clan, all female cultivators would enter the Jade Yang Peak to cultivate. However, due to the lack of female cultivators with outstanding aptitudes, the strength of the Jade Yang Peak was average. They only had an early core formation stage martial uncle. The red-clothed woman in front of them was called Luo Tianyue. She was in the late foundation establishment stage. It could be said that she was the strongest female cultivator in the Jade Yang Peak. Luo Tianyue looked at the entry token in Lu Kuan's hand and frowned. Magic power flashed in her hand, and she called it over. She carefully examined it several times with her divine sense and said, "This entry token is indeed real. However, we must return to the sect and let the peak masters examine it to confirm the power of the bloodline within." After saying that, she looked at Lu Kuan. Of course, she remembered this cultivator outside the fog. At such a young age, he was only in the 4th layer of the Qi refining stage. It could be seen that his aptitude was extremely poor. However, she did not expect that the child beside him would have such good aptitude. As for the other boy, Luo Tianyue had also tested him. He indeed had a fire and wood dual attribute spirit root. His aptitude was also excellent. Qian Fan heard Luo Tianyue's words and nodded. He turned to Shun Lei and said, "Finish examining the remaining people. Once we're done, we'll return to the Yang clan." Chapter 111. On the second day, a gap appeared in the fog above the market. A giant flying boat flew out from it and headed towards the depths of the Yang mountain range. Then, the fog closed up again. Lu Kuan and the Zhao siblings stood at the front of the flying boat. In front of them were 3 foundation establishment cultivators from the Yang clan and a little girl. This little girl was the one that Lu Kuan and the others saw outside the market. This little girl secretly looked back at Sher Chao and Zhao Qingtian with a face full of curiosity. Behind Lu Kuan were the 40 or so new disciples of the Yang clan who had passed the selection. These disciples were looking at Sher Chao with envy. In this group, only 3 people had dual spiritual roots. The rest were relatively ordinary. Sher Chao, the little girl, felt a little uneasy when she was suddenly stared at with so many envious eyes. On the way here, Lu Kuan had already told her about the rarity of mutated spiritual roots so that she could prepare herself mentally. On the other hand, Zhao Qingtian felt a little relaxed. Originally, he was a little unconvinced when his sister caught up with him. Now that he saw so many people envious of his sister's aptitude, he felt a burst of pride. On the other hand, Lu Kuan had a calm expression. He looked at the scenery that was flying past him and silently memorized the flying boat's route. When the older cultivators around him looked at him, they all showed a bit of disdain. Lu Kuan didn't care at all. In these people's eyes, a 30-year-old cultivator with a cultivation level of only the 4th layer of the Qi refining stage will be the lowest of the Yang clan's disciples. In their lifetime, if they could rely on the rich spiritual energy of the Yang clan to advance 1 or 2 layers, they would already be burning incense. Xinlei, including the 3 cultivators at the front of the flying boat, didn't have the intention to test Lu Kuan's spiritual roots. In their hearts, they had already classified Lu Kuan as the one with the worst aptitude. Now, they brought Lu Kuan with them because he had the entry token. Every entry token had to be inspected by the peak masters of the clan. Lu Kuan was the Zhao siblings' master. Therefore, no matter what his cultivation level was, he had to enter the clan and clearly explain the ins and outs of the entry token. After Lu Kuan handed over the entry token, he was very glad that he didn't come alone. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to pass the bloodline test that the red-clothed female cultivator had mentioned. At that time, in front of these foundation establishment cultivators would only be a dead end. Now, Lu Kuan hoped that the Yang clan would accept him as a disciple on account of him teaching the Zhao siblings and bringing them to the Yang clan. This way, he would have the opportunity to find more cultivation techniques in the Yang clan for reference. He had previously communicated with Shan Mengyao. The Yang clan was similar to the Miraculous Gate in that there were all kinds of missions within the clan. Most of them didn't limit one's cultivation level. This way, with his true strength, he would be able to accumulate enough sect contribution points to exchange for the resources he needed. Just as Lu Kuan's thoughts were in a mess, the flying boat approached the 5 mountain peaks. Lu Kuan's golden eyes flashed. He discovered that outside the 5 mountain peaks, there was a huge pale, golden, transparent barrier enveloping them. This really shocked him. He thought to himself, this must be the so-called Great Forbidden Array of the sect. Lu Kuan had read an introduction to the Great Forbidden Array in the ancient records. In addition to the ability to resist attacks, the Great Forbidden Array also had the ability to isolate spiritual sense and gather the surrounding spiritual energy. The number of spiritual stones consumed every year was astronomical. Looking at the scene in front of him, this Great Forbidden Array wasn't fully activated. If this Great Forbidden Array was fully activated, not only would it be impossible to see what was inside, even a nascent soul stage patriarch wouldn't be able to break through this defense in a short time. The flying boat stopped outside the pale golden barrier. Not long after, a group of about 5 cultivators flew out from inside. The leader was a kind-looking old man. When he saw the people in front of the flying boat, he smiled and took out a golden disc from his sleeve. He quickly tapped on the golden formation plate, and a gap opened up in the golden barrier, allowing the flying ship to fly in. Before the flying boat got close, Qian Qi's voice could be heard. "Senior Marshal Brother Zhu, how come you have time to lead a patrol team today?" The Foundation establishment cultivators on the flying boat all recognized this old man. They looked at him with respect. This kind-looking old man was a late Foundation establishment cultivator. His name was Zhu Siming, and he was a disciple of the weapon refining peak. All of the Foundation establishment stage immortal cultivators recognized Zhu Siming because most of the magic items in their hands have been refined by this old man. He was best at carving magic arrays into magic items, which was especially important to the magic items in the hands of Foundation establishment stage immortal cultivators. When Zhu Siming heard Qian Qi's words, he smiled bitterly and sighed. "AI, you all know that this Great Forbidden Array has to be inspected every 50 years to prevent any mistakes. In the past, it was always Marshal Uncle Zhang who came to inspect, who knew that he couldn't come out of seclusion, so he sent me here." When the red-clothed woman, Luo Tianyue, heard this, she chuckled and said, "Who in the sect doesn't know that Senior Marshal Brother Zhu was born with a powerful divine sense and is proficient in arrays? Marshal Uncle Zhang could only send Senior Marshal Brother Zhu to complete this task. You little girl only knows how to flatter me. Oh right, the peak leaders have already arrived at the meeting hall. You could go directly. I'll continue to inspect the array." The few Foundation establishment cultivators on the flying boat cupped their fists towards the old man, then controlled the flying boat to fly towards the meeting hall. After the old man watched the flying boat leave, he muttered, "This little guy is interesting. His divine sense is so mysterious. If it wasn't for my divine sense being comparable to a core formation cultivator's, I wouldn't have noticed. Forget it. With that old man Niao Wufeng here, his divine sense is only a bit weaker than mine. He'll definitely notice. What's there to worry about? Let's get back to work." After muttering to himself for a long time, the old man flew away with the Qi refinement cultivators. At this moment, in the meeting hall of the Yang clan, other than Du Ruoqiao of the Jade Sun Peak, the other peak leaders were all sitting cross-legged. Du Ruoqiao looked left and right, but no one spoke. This made her feel very uncomfortable. She couldn't cultivate in peace here. Suddenly, a red sound-transmitting talisman flew in from the outside and stopped in front of Du Ruoqiao. When Du Ruoqiao saw this sound-transmitting talisman, her face lit up. She immediately opened it, and a melodious female voice came out from it. "Junior Marshal Sister Du, this time when I went out to do some business, I met a little girl with a spiritual body and brought her back. Moreover, among the disciples recruited this year, there's a girl with an ice spiritual root." "Ha ha, Junior Marshal Sister, are you wild with joy after hearing this?" Du Ruoqiao's sound-transmitting talisman was publicly released, so the peak leaders present all heard it. They all opened their eyes and exclaimed in surprise. "Spiritual body, a spiritual root." After Niao Wufeng heard this, he also revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. "Ha ha!" Du Ruoqiao, who was in a daze for a while, finally came back to her senses and laughed loudly. Her laughter was filled with pride. Not long after, a group of people appeared outside the door. Among them, a woman covered her mouth and chuckled. "Junior Marshal Sister Du, don't laugh. Even outside the meeting hall, Your laughter can be heard clearly. Be careful not to scare the disciples away. Senior Marshal Sister Luo, you're here. These two little girls are the two you mentioned. Duruoqiao's eyes lit up as she looked at the two beautiful little girls behind Luo Tianyue. She couldn't help but walk forward. Seeing Duruoqiao like this, Niao Wufeng shook his head, snorted, and said, "Junior Marshal Sister Du, be quiet. Hurry up and return to your seat." Duruoqiao was shaken awake by Niao Wufeng's snort that contained Fa Li. She could only obediently return to her seat. Niao Wufeng turned to Qian Shi, who was beside Luo Tianyue, and ordered, "Qian Shi, tell me about the recruitment of disciples this time." Hearing this, Qian Shi respectfully said, "Yes, Senior Marshal Brother Nia. This time, we recruited a total of 42 disciples. Among them, one has the spiritual body, one has the ice spiritual root, have the dual spiritual root, 25 have the triple spiritual root, and 10 are rogue cultivators above the 10th level of qi refining." At this time, Zhu Xiaofeng of the Morning Sun Peak frowned and said, "Why is there a 30-year-old 4th level qi refining cultivator?" Hearing this, Qian Shi said, "Senior Marshal Brother Zhu, this last disciple came with an entry token." "Entry token? I see." The one who spoke was Niao Wufeng. When this group of people came in, he saw Lu Kuan at first glance. After hearing Qian Shi mention the entry token, some of his doubts were cleared. Niao Wufeng's brows did not relax. He faintly felt that Lu Kuan was a bit unusual. "Junior Marshal Brothers, distribute the disciples. I will examine the entry tokens." At this time, Qian Shi said, "Wait, Senior Marshal Brother Nia. This 4th level qi refining cultivator said that the entry tokens belong to his disciples. His disciples are the little girl with the ice spiritual root and the boy with the fire and with dual spiritual root." The peak leaders present immediately felt that it was very absurd. A cultivator with such poor talent was actually the master of this pair of siblings with top talent. Just as the peak leaders were about to speak, Niao Wufeng said, "Then the three of you come with me to the side. Tell me about the entry tokens. Junior Marshal Brother Zhu, you lead the distribution of disciples." After speaking, Niao Wufeng led Lu Kuan and the other two to the side, ignoring the people who were beginning to fight over the disciples. Niao Wufeng held the entry token in his hand and poured his green magic power into it. He muttered something and then grabbed the wrists of the Zhao siblings in turn. A light breeze brushed past, and 2 drops of blood floated out. These 2 drops of blood directly entered the entry tokens. Suddenly, a blood-red light flashed and floated into the air, forming a large Zhao character. This scene was seen by everyone. Zhu Xiaofeng murmured, "It really is an entry token, and it's from the Zhao family." "Junior Marshal Brother Zhu, you also know about the Zhao family, right?" "Now it's confirmed. However, I have some things to ask this young man next to you. You can continue." After saying that, Niao Wufeng brought Lu Kuan to a side hall. Furthermore, he released a restriction. Given his formidable strength, the few people present were unable to detect him. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.